Good evening, and thank everyone for coming once again. I really appreciate your patience and your involvement and so forth. I'm Nellie Hutt, Chair, and I want to do a round of introduction. A couple of people who we have not met, and so just if you can just introduce yourself and then we'll get started.
Herman Charity. Good evening, Ricardo Morales. Paul Rivers.
I'm Arnetta Wire.
Okay, so, and you guys know each other, so let's get started. Purpose of tonight's meeting is to give our law enforcement an opportunity to speak with us. We're gonna follow the agenda. Oh, wait a minute, who's online? Mr. Gormley, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello there.
Great, I'm sorry. Anyone else online? Okay, all right, let's get started. We're gonna be listening tonight. We're gonna give our law enforcement department an opportunity to speak to us about three things. Structure and operations, complaint and investigation process, and body-worn cameras. We're gonna do a lot of listenings. A number of you have sent, I've had several questions, and I want to especially acknowledge Mr. Gormley's questions. We do have them, and a couple of more. And what I want to do is just give law enforcement an opportunity to speak. And I think some of these questions will be answered just in the presentation. And to the extent that they're not, we can discuss. Hopefully we'll have time at the end. If not, we can certainly get back to them. I didn't want anybody to think that their questions were being ignored. But this particular meeting the agenda is to give law enforcement an opportunity to tell us what they have prepared. But I do have a couple of housekeeping issues that pertains to the board. As I opened up, confidentiality is very important. And the confidentiality agreement is required, and it was prepared in accordance with the code, county code. And for those of you who are interested in section 17207I, there are no provisions for changing that document. So if you have not done so, please complete and turn in the confidentiality. And I think, Kiana, do you have copies for those who don't have it? The other thing is the financial agreement, financial disclosure form. Thank you. If you have not done that, please do that. The other thing I would like for you to do is complete the Open Meeting Act training. I started it, and there's a lot of things I have to get used to. I think I was a little surprised, but it's more like just understanding like what to do and how to do it. I want everyone to be very careful of emailing, texting, and so forth. Especially before you read this Open Meeting Act. I do want to say that if you don't read it, you will make mistakes. I promise you, you will make mistakes. And some of them we can handle, some of them will cause us problems. So just make sure that you do that. The other thing is that we had a question about a pending complaint that has been filed. Now, it's my understanding, and Sega, if you can chime in if I'm wrong about this, my understanding is that our responsibility and our jurisdiction goes to incidents after July 1, 2022, okay? This particular complaint was filed in November 2021. Therefore, it's not within our jurisdiction, okay? Okay, what else?
Just to correct one thing,
Please,
Madam Chair.
please.
I believe the complaint was Kiana could tell us the exact date the complaint was received by the board. The incident occurred in November of 2021.
Correct.
And the session laws for the Police Accountability Act specifically state that they are to be applicable proactively, not retroactively. So the board's jurisdiction really doesn't begin until July 1st. There are other provisions of the section laws pertaining to this law, which pertain to the collective bargaining agreement with the police department, which also impacts this board's jurisdiction as it pertains to complaints received before July 1st, 2023. But I just wanted to clarify that the complaint was
It was
Yeah.
received after July, but the
Yes.
incident was in November.
Yes, correct. So
Okay.
any incident that happens before the effective date of the statute would not come within the purview of the board's jurisdiction.
Okay, that was my fourth
Yes.
question, my first comment, my last comment. So, so those are just preliminary and, like, if you have questions about that, see me afterwards, send me an email or, well, not email, we don't do that. I just said that before you read the Open, Meetings Act. Okay, that's it. for
Nellie,
me.
Jim Gormley, I was, obviously I'd raised that as an issue, but I really appreciate the clarification and absolutely, I do believe, I fully agree that it would not come within our jurisdiction. So obviously the question I had raised is not applicable to that particular matter. So thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Mr. Gorman. By the way, it's not my practice to identify who raises the issue because it's really not important to what we're working at. So if you want to own it, that's fine. And that goes to anybody else. But just so you know, it's just not my practice to do that. So thank you. Okay. Got the floor.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
I'm
evening.
Sheriff Harris. Madam Chair, I'd like to thank you and the members of the PA Board for giving us an opportunity to come and tell you a little bit about what we do at the Sheriff's Office. Along with me, I have Captain Granger and Lieutenant Bear. Lieutenant Bear will talk to you about Bodyboard cameras. Captain Granger will talk to you about our internal investigations, internal affairs. Also, he's our landlord tenant, he runs that. And Lieutenant Bear has domestic violence and the warrants. So I'll describe those, but if you have any questions, they'll be able to answer those questions. And I'll get started. I'll be brief. The mission of the Howard County Sheriff's Office is to provide judicial enforcement and physical security for the circuit court, to provide a variety of quality services for citizens, and to assist other law enforcement agencies in law and order in Howard County. Our primary responsibilities, I'll go through our units, and then I'll go through and give you a brief overview of each unit. We have a warrant and fugitive unit, a domestic violence unit, landlord tenants unit. Now we have bodywork cameras that we just got up and running. Administrative services, which includes property and evidence and our quartermaster. We have 2 explosive detection canines, a prisoner transport, a summons unit, and community outreach. Next slide.
Sheriff Harris,
Yes, sir.
just going back to the previous slide, quartermaster is what exactly?
He basically handles uniforms, vehicles, our fleet, things of that nature.
Thank you.
We just actually made the quartermaster a tech corporal so that he could deal with issues without having to continually come to us. We did that with him and our range instructor. And that's what he deals with. You can go to the next slide. I'm gonna skip our org chart because I'll give you, it's better. This kind of simplifies it, this next page. We currently have 60 sworn deputies. Our authorized strength is 72. We currently have 2 deputies in the police academy now, and we're looking to hire another 10. Our current support personnel, we have 14. Authorized strength is 15. We currently have 6 special police officers. Our authorized strength is 6. We currently have 1 part-time contingent employee, and authorized strength is 2. And so special police officers, people often ask what they do. They don't wear weapons. They basically help to secure the courthouse and transport prisoners within the courthouse from the cells to the courtrooms. I'll get into more of that. Next slide. So our courthouse operations. We currently have 14 sworn deputies and 6 special police officers. They're tasked with securing the courthouse, protecting the citizens and the judges and everybody who works in the courthouse. Next, we have a summons unit, which actually consists of 4 deputies. Right now, though, our summons unit is being handled by our domestic violence unit until we can get the other 10 deputies hired. And then summons unit will go back out on the street, will be a separate unit. They basically handle the civil summonses that we serve here in Howard County. We have a prisoner transport. We have 6 sworn deputies in our prisoner transport. They're tasked with, taking prisoners from the detention center to the courthouses here in Howard, the district court and circuit court here in Howard County, and actually throughout the state. Next, we have our domestic violence unit.
I'm not sure what the process is in terms of me asking questions.
I'd like for you to hold your questions, please, but you can write them down.
Fair enough, I
Then
got it.
Thank you for asking
All
that
right.
question.
So our domestic violence unit, we have 12 sworn deputies in our domestic violence unit and 2 civilian employees. The PD's tasked with handling the 911 calls for service when we have a domestic violence incident. We're tasked with handling the paperwork and things that come after that. If we have a protection order or a vacate, we are responsible for going out and removing the person from the home. We would deal with that. And if you have further questions about that unit, Lieutenant Barris here, he actually runs that unit. Next, we have our warrant infusion unit. We have 6 sworn deputies and 2 civilians. They handle the warrants that come out of the courts. For example, we just had, our state's attorney had a gang case. He had 4 or 5 individuals that were indicted, and we had to handle that, those indictments with the help of the PD and the federal task force. I'm proud to say we just sent one of our deputies down to work with the federal task force and plan on sending one more down to work with them so that when we have these cases, we have somebody in the fold now. So I'm glad, it's never been done here in Howard County, so I'm glad we're able to get that done. They're also tasked with extraditions. So if we have someone in Florida, for example, that's locked up and they want it back here in Howard County, and we have to bring them back, it's our job to go get them and bring them back to Howard County to face the charges here in Howard County. And once again, Lieutenant Barry has that unit. We'll gladly answer any questions. We have our landlord-tenant section. We have 5 sworn deputies in our landlord-tenant section, and 1 civilian. They're tasked with basically doing all the evictions here in Howard County. Simple one. And obviously now, next, we have our body-worn camera unit now. We actually have 54 sworn deputies wearing body-worn cameras now, from rank of lieutenant on down. And I won't step on Lieutenant Barrett's toes because he's here to give a presentation on our body-worn cameras. Administrative services that consist of our property and evidence, internal investigations, fleet, public information officers, community outreach, K9, honor guard, and quartermaster. Next. And we're not here to talk about community outreach, so I won't go over that one. I just like to say, listen, since I took over in 2018, we've been able to form a great partnership with the police department. And we probably get a little bit more involved now than we used to. We have full law enforcement powers. My guys will pull you over, give you a ticket, but we know what our responsibilities are. We absolutely consider the police department primary, and we're secondary. But we've been able to help them in situations like I was explaining with the indictments. They helped us with those indictments. So I'm proud to be a part of law enforcement here in Howard County. Thank you. Next, I'll have Captain Ray.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Chief Thurr, members of the board. I'm going to go over the Howard County Sheriff's Office complaint and investigation process under General Order Admin Code 9. Second page. So I'm the Administrative Services Commander. Again, my name is Captain Darren Granger, and I just put my information up there for now. So you'll find later that I'm also the advocate for the Sheriff's Office. I'm also the liaison for the PAB and the ACC. I work directly under Sheriff Harris and Colonel Mark Verderam. I also am in charge of education and training, internal affairs, recruitment, and as I said earlier, the victim rights advocate and the liaison between the Police Academy Board and the ACC. Next. So just a few important aspects as it relates to both the PAB and the Howard County Sheriff's Office. And I know Sheriff Harris spoke about this about a month ago. And it's important for all of us: transparency, integrity, and accountability. Transparency, the Howard County Sheriff's Office will be open to thoughts, opinions from the PAB and the ACC. And to that note, we are in the process of uploading our internal fair case spreadsheet on our website. We're going to upload our complaint form, which I believe is already there, and the advocate information on our Howard County website. We're in the process of doing all of that. Integrity, being upfront and honest. Accountability, the Howard County Sheriff's Office and our personnel will be held responsible for their actions. Going to directly into the complaint process. A citizen can register a complaint electronically. They can do it on our website. They can call in on the telephone. They can write it on a piece of paper. They can write us a letter. We can meet an individual in the field. They can come to the Howard County Sheriff's Office at the courthouse, our new courthouse, or from the PAB for alleged improper or inappropriate misconduct by a sworn deputy. And I cited the public safety article section 3101, which I'm sure everybody's aware of. Violating someone's rights, a person's rights, violating policies such as code of conduct, which is in our admin 03 general order, and violating any criminal law or statute. So a complaint is recorded on a form that we hold. It's called a complaint against personnel, which is a form 9100. It's filled out by the complainant or the person taking the complaint, such as a supervisor or their designee. The chief deputy and division commander will be notified. The investigation and the assignment are based on the seriousness and nature of the complaint. And an example, I'll give you two examples: brutality, misuse of force, or a minor offense such as a standard execution of an eviction. So when I say two examples, brutality, if we get a complaint that comes into anyone, obviously the chief deputy, the colonel, is going to oversee that. He's going to assign it to probably a captain, myself, or it could be Lieutenant Bear or one of the other captains in the office, and we will do an investigation on that. And I know the eviction case because we get a lot of calls every day. That actually falls under my command, as Sheriff Harris spoke of earlier. And I'll give you an example. We get a lot of calls where an individual will say, "We had a deputy at my house today, and I was just evicted." And that's not a complaint. I mean, we have a court order comes out of the district court or the circuit court. We have every right to execute that order. So we don't consider that a complaint unless someone says there was misconduct involved with the deputy or they were rude. That's a different story. We will investigate that, and they will be asked to fill out a form, and we'll do that for them. But if it's just a simple call where they say I was evicted today, we don't label that as a complaint because we enforce court orders as they come out of the district court and circuit court. Investigator will review the complaint, interview the complainant, all the witnesses to include co-workers, family members, neighbors, business owners, review any body-worn camera that we now have, and CCTV video, regardless if it's at someone's house or if it's at a business. If it's there and we have the ability to investigate that and get that video, that's going to become part of our case file. And that's what the investigator is going to be doing when they get that complaint. He or she has certain responsibilities to go out and start fact finding on that complaint that came in. So they'll also interview the deputy involved, submit a written conclusion of fact, which will be prepared by the investigator to include a recommendation of finding, such as, not just use two for now, they're the simplest ones. It's either going to be sustained or not sustained, or not sustained. So sustained, that means there's enough facts there to move forward. If it's not sustained, meaning that the investigator did not have enough facts to move forward with this case, and they can leave it as not sustained. Next page. So the chief deputy of the designation shall forward to the ACC, the investigatory file, within 15 days after the ACC issues an administrative charge. The sheriff shall offer discipline to the member who has been charged in accordance with the disciplinary matrix, which I'm sure you all are aware of now. There's 6 categories that fall within that matrix, A through F. A being the lowest, meaning an example could be counseling, verbal counseling, or F meaning termination. So it goes to A through F. And there's others in there too. I think if you're involved in an accident, there's matrix in there for accident as well. I don't have that with me. The sheriff may offer the same discipline or higher within the matrix, but may not deviate below the recommendation by the ACC. If the deputy accepts the sheriff's offer of discipline, it shall be imposed. If the deputy doesn't take the officer, then the matter shall be referred to a trial board. The board, as we all know, consists of a judge or retired judge, either from the circuit or district court, a civilian, not a member of the ACC, and a deputy of equal rank. And one thing I did want to make note of, if a deputy is charged criminally, outside of the sheriff's office. If the Howard County Police Department had to charge one of my deputies, obviously their charge will take precedent. They're going to do their due diligence and do their job, just as an investigator would, finding of facts on this particular deputy and charge them accordingly. And our investigator who's assigned to that case will also do their due diligence and follow their investigation along with the Howard County Police Department. But it's not just Howard County Police Department, it could be any jurisdiction or state of Maryland. So we'll work together with them as we go through the charge and the investigation, regardless if it's criminal or internal investigation. Emergency suspension can be given out with or without pay. You can suspend someone's police powers. We can be placed the individual administrative assignment for the best interests of the Howard County Sheriff's Office, the county, and the public. And as I said earlier, I am the victim advocate. So what that means, I work as a liaison for the public on matters related to misconduct that comes to our attention, regardless if it's in-house or if it comes from the PAB, the board, the ACC. I will explain the process, the procedure, and give updates throughout the process to conclude a disposition. So I will keep in touch with individual randomly throughout the course of the case to keep them apprised of where we are. So again, Captain Grant here, that's my information for all of you. You can reach out to me later if you have any questions or concerns.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lieutenant Bear with the Sheriff's Office. There's some of you from the past, others I just met tonight. I'm going to go over with you our Bodyboard Camera program. As Sheriff Harris stated, I'm the supervisor of our Field Operation Division, which includes our Domestic Violence Unit and also our Warrant Fugitive Unit. Over this past year, I've had the special project of being the Bodywork Camera Program Coordinator. Okay, so our program just started 3.5 weeks ago. We all just went live on August 15th. As Sheriff Harris stated, we have 54 sworn deputies that are currently wearing body-worn cameras. That's everybody within the Sheriff's Office. That's the rank of lieutenant or below. Again, the police department is the primary law enforcement agency. We're secondary. We're a lot smaller. We're going to have a lot lower volume of recordings. However, in that 3.5 weeks, we already have over 2,100 recordings. Kind of give you an idea of how many recordings there are. All right, so I'm going to go over some bits of our policy on body-worn camera. Again, this is a new program to us. So as far as writing our policy, we collaborated with a lot of other agencies throughout the state, a lot of accredited agencies that already have body-worn camera in place. We also reviewed some of the best practices with other sheriff's office with similar functions as Howard County. Specifically Montgomery County, they are very similar to Howard County with the primary law enforcement agency being the county police. And then the sheriff's office in Montgomery County has very similar duties as we do in Howard. They have also been running their body-worn camera program for 5 years. So we leaned on them a good bit in developing a policy for this. Policy is not available yet, but will be available on our sheriff's office website. We're currently working on getting that done. All right, so a couple points within the policy I want to go over. First of all, one of the main questions is required activation. So our order says that deputies are required to activate cameras when taking any enforcement action, such as but not limited to the services of all domestic violence orders and peace orders, all evictions, warrant service, and any other arrest, all enforcement and investigation related public contacts, and finally, any contact that becomes adversarial after the initial contact in a situation that would not otherwise require recording. So as far as that last one goes, to give you an example, we have a deputy that's working the metal detector at our circuit courthouse. They're working an 8-hour shift, just checking people in at the metal detector. They're not going to be recording at that metal detector for 8 hours a day. However, you have a citizen who walks in, refuses to take off their belt, pulls a pocket knife out of their pocket, anything where that contact becomes adversarial in nature, the deputy at that point is obligated to begin recording. So deputies will only activate body-worn cameras while carrying out law enforcement activities. Some prohibited use includes locker rooms, restrooms, strip searches, and inside medical facilities. The medical facilities provision is basically because of HIPAA regulations. Deputies are required to notify individuals that they're being recorded as soon as practicable, unless it is unsafe, impractical, or impossible to do so. So as soon as we turn that camera on while we're having that interaction with the citizen, this an example would be our interaction is being recorded by my body-worn camera. We've now notified them that they're being recorded, and then we would move on with conversation. Whenever the body-worn camera is deactivated, the deputy must record a brief verbal explanation prior to turning off the recording. An example would be, this eviction has concluded, I'm turning off my camera. Deputies cannot deactivate their cameras for no reason. If they cannot be at an incident and decide, oh, now I'm going to turn it off, now I'm going to turn it on. They're obligated to keep that camera on until the event has concluded. They have a reason to do so, and they're obligated to verbally say where the camera picks up why they're deactivating their camera. So see, I'm wearing a camera right now. There's 3 ways that we can activate the camera. See this large circle in the front, it's blinking green. A deputy would simply double tap that button and it would begin recording. That's the first way that the deputy would physically do it. Outside of that, we've purchased a couple devices, and the police department has done the same, that would also activate our cameras. The first is a signal sidearm device. So when all of our holsters, we have installed a battery operated device. So when a deputy draws his weapon, that device sends a Bluetooth signal to the deputy that's wearing the camera and automatically activates the camera. It also activates any cameras within 30 feet. Same thing, we have a vehicle signal device. What that is a device that's been installed in all of our patrol vehicles, where when the deputy turns on all their emergency lights, again, a Bluetooth signal is sent to their camera. It automatically turns the camera on. These 2 devices are not agency specific. With the police department, if we back the police department up on a traffic stop and they would happen to pull their firearm out, it would activate our cameras as well. So it's not specific just to our agency. It works when we're working with the police department. Maryland State Police also purchased body-worn cameras from the same manufacturer. So it also works with them if we would be on an incident with state police there as well. So once a recording starts, if you were to review that recording, you would see that the recording actually starts 30 seconds prior to hitting that button. So this thing is always recording. It's always on. When I activate it, when I push the button right now to activate, it will show what happened 30 seconds prior when we review that video. So if I'm on an incident where I have to draw my weapon, when I draw my weapon and that camera activates, it's going to show what I saw 30 seconds prior that caused me to activate the camera. So that's how it works on all the recordings. That 30 seconds prior, just the way we have set up, only shows video. There's no audio in that 30 seconds, just video. So once we take a recording, they have to all be labeled and tracked. So all recordings will be labeled consistent with the event and maintain an established retention schedule. So depending on how we label that video, what the event is how it will be retained in our software that keeps the videos. So that retention period could be anywhere from 30 days up to 50 years that video is retained. As far as review and release of videos, supervisors, all Howard County Sheriff's Office supervisors will have the ability to review body-worn camera recordings within their chain of command as the sheriff went over our different units. For instance, somebody in a transportation unit would not be able, a supervisor in a transportation unit would not be able to view my warrant fugitive detectives' videos, only within their chain of command. However, all recordings involving any reported use of force or injuries are reviewed by supervisor of the rank of lieutenant or above. Everyone will automatically be reviewed by someone of that rank of lieutenant or above. Our county sheriff's office will release recordings to the public consistent with Maryland Public Information Act regulations. These videos will be redacted prior to release in compliance with all record release laws. We have had one request already for a video. It was a civil matter on an eviction. It was not a complaint against any of our deputies, but out of the two parties in the eviction, one was anticipating further complaints down the road and wished to obtain those recordings in case that would come up. So in those instances, it would be our body-worn camera units job to do the redaction, to take out the personal information before we release that to the requester. All recordings evidentiary in nature will be released to the Howard County State's Attorney's Office for investigation and prosecution. The police department is going to have 10 times that what we do. With our functions, we are basically dealing with the public after they've been to court. However, when there are new charges based on our contact with them, and any of that video is evidentiary in nature, at that time, we would forward it to the state's attorney's office for review as part of the case and reports. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the time. Actually, we're going a little faster than I thought.
We're gonna be a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Okay. Zip.
Did you, Alan, did you want to ask questions in the sheriff's office? No.
Yes,
I was
please.
gonna ask you that. Can we ask the sheriff a couple of questions?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna suggest. So we won't I've kind of deferred a couple of questions, and I know, I have some and a couple of people may have some. And if we can kind of quickly go through those. If it gets too laborious, then we can defer. Yes, please.
Captain Granger.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll answer the best I can.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you are in contact with the complaining parties in each internal affairs investigation that you come across. Do you have a formal mechanism where you notify the complainant that you have received an investigation, and a formal mechanism where you give them the outcome of that investigation?
We do.
Okay, and how's that done?
Well, formal, whereas if I have a complaint that I'm dealing with, just like an advocate, I'm gonna work with that individual completely through the entire process.
Do you send them like any kind of letter saying that you have received a complaint and it's being investigated? Do you do that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we do. Yes, and at the end, we don't tell them when a case is sustained or what happened with disciplinary. We don't explain all. We just send them a letter at the conclusion of the case when it's final, that your case has been. I don't know the exact terminology or language. We notify them that the case is complete. It's been founded or unfounded. We just don't give them the disciplinary information.
Okay, thank you.
You got a question?
I'm sorry, because
Yeah, I had a couple, but
Yes.
just real quick, I guess it would be with the body-worn camera. It's pretty simple. Can a citizen request that an officer activate the body-worn camera? You said that there's specific instances when that happens, that the officer does it. And there's 3 ways that it happens, 2 ways that happen automatically, and 1 way that they do it. Can a citizen request that happen?
If a citizen is requesting that happen, I would already say that incident is adversarial. So they would probably be obligated at that point. If somebody just asks out of the blue to do it, no, they're not obligated to. But no, our general order does not state that they are obligated to turn it on just on a citizen's request.
Yeah, actually, that was going to be my question in terms of the discretionary nature to turn it on. And I assumed your answer, which is, no, somebody just can't walk up to you and say, turn it on. But if you are engaging with that person and that person feels whatever they feel, they can ask you to turn it on, whether you decide it's adversarial or not. I think, just in terms of the protection, what's the downside? That's my point, of requesting, of a citizen saying, you know, I feel uncomfortable, can you turn your camera on? I mean, would that be adversarial, or is that still
I
discretionary?
think it's kind of there's a lot of gray areas with this.
That's why I'm asking.
It is new to us. What we're teaching all of our deputies is that if there's a question whether I should or shouldn't record, to record it.
Okay,
I think we could come up with 100 different scenarios.
right.
Um,
You know, the other thing is that this is new, so we kind of feeling our way. We do want to have some groundwork, just like what I said. I mean, I may feel uncomfortable, Kiana may not feel uncomfortable in the same situation. But if a person says, I'm uncomfortable, for whatever reason, I'm uncomfortable, you know, because people bring whomever they are to the situation. And so if they're uncomfortable, I think your answer is appropriate. If that person says I'm uncomfortable, because you don't want to be in a position to say, well, I told him I was uncomfortable and he refused or she refused. So just, you know, unless, yeah, that's fine.
So, Madam Chair, can I just finish, just to follow up? In terms of, what is the consequence of a officer not turning on their cameras or turning it off? Like, what happens if, where they should
We
and they
do
don't?
not have those measures in place yet. The problem is, this is a new concept for police officers. We have a lot of retired officers from other agencies, 30+ years on, and this is completely new way of policing for them. So there's a learning curve. There are ones that I think honestly forget at times. There's been we've had accidental recordings, many accidental recordings. It's something that they have to adapt to. Right now, we're on our immediate supervisors to constantly check their people that they are recording until they adapt to it. But there isn't any.
I guess that's exactly my concern, that because it's new technology, with most, unless it's checked, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen as consistently as you want it to.
Correct.
So I guess that's the basis of my
There-
question.
I don't want to say we have a grace period,
Mhm.
but it's kind of like, we understand it's a new thing at this point. We're not, I think I could identify a couple individuals within the agency who we need to look at more closely. They've been identified and their supervisors are watching them. But we're aware of it and we're.
Is there a deadline to move forward to beyond what's the grace period?
We don't have a deadline. I don't have a
Okay.
date.
I got one quick question for the captain. Captain, it's my understanding that if a complaint is unfounded, then you don't send back anything to the complainant?
Yes, we do.
You do?
We'll notify them.
Okay.
And getting back to Herman's question, if you don't mind. So when I spoke earlier, we want individuals to come in and file a complaint with us. I mean, if they can do it in any fashion or form that they wish it. A lot of them don't want to come in. A lot of them just want to make a phone call. But that first initial interview with a complainant, I give them the ability to put it in writing. We have that Form 9100, it's complaint against personnel, and they can write verbatim on there what they want, not what I'm writing. So that's the first formality, and I even give them a copy of it because it's their writing that they sign off right in front of me. And sometimes they do a continuation letter and write more than what that form offers. And one more thing, I want to give kudos to Lieutenant Baer, because you brought up a good point, and this is a learning curve for us moving forward with these body-worn cameras. We did have an issue, and because of his due diligence and our supervisors, going back, looking at how deputies are maintaining their body-worn camera on incidents or whatever, evictions or warrant service, anything. And this is how we find that small errors or mistakes are being made, and he actually called a meeting last week with the sheriff, and we sat down to go over these things that we're seeing now, because it's really early, it's very new to us. And what did we do as a result of that? We went back to I'm in charge of landlord tenant. I held a meeting with my unit and sat down with them. Lieutenant Baer had a spreadsheet of all the things that we needed addressed, because it's a training thing. Like you said, it's new. So we are addressing these as we move along. So that's a good question.
My last part of this question is, will every complaint, whether founded or unfounded, be reported to the PAB?
Not every complaint. If it's anonymous, from what I understand, it's not gonna come to the sheriff's office.
Can't be filed with us. It can't be filed with us either. We have to have some type of,
Something has to be. in-
Right, but that means if it's filed with if it's filed with the sheriff's department and you're investigating it, will it be brought to the PAB if it's unfounded? What I'm saying is you get a complaint on Paul Rivers. You find out that Paul Rivers was innocent. Will you still report that to the PAB?
I gotta look into that. I can't answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, do you have any questions?
Just a very few. And echoing what Paul was saying there, I wonder if you could give some consideration to how notification, information on complaints that are being investigated, that that pass the the initial threshold for investigation, how we might have some visibility on those, because I think that's going to be important for our mission as well. So as you think through that, leading to a question, you mentioned that there would be an internal affairs spreadsheet.
Going to a second question? Are you going to a second question? Is this, are you?
It was. I'll stop there. Yes, for comment. It was a follow-on question, but yes, I should stop. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Can you repeat your question, please?
Your first question, I don't want it to confuse everyone. What was
Sure.
your-
My first question request is, can you give some thought as you continue to work on your policy for body-worn through your complaints process, now that the PAB has been established, on how we get visibility on complaints that are being investigated? It's, to a degree, it's echoing what Paul said as well.
My understanding, once the complaint is investigated and my finding of fact and my conclusion is sent to my colonel, then it will be sent to the PAB.
correct,
Right?
after the
And
final
that's,
decision is made.
yeah, we will send it to.
I'm sorry,
the
to the eight, not to the,
Legal,
ACC.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
ACC.
sorry, yes.
yeah.
This is new.
ACC.
No
Bear
problem.
with me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Understanding the ACC's role in this, I think the PAB has a different role, and certainly I'd like to consider what visibility the PAB should have in ongoing complaints of alleged misconduct. Yes.
Jim, I think that's statutory, but we can get into that. What other question do you have? What's the second question?
My second question was, I think you mentioned with respect to the body-worn cameras that there are going to be 54 deployed personnel with the cameras, lieutenant, ranking at lieutenant and below. What are the criteria for not having a body-worn camera? There's 80 personnel in the department. Is there any window or any gap there between the 54 deployed and the amount, the officers who may have interactions with the public from a law enforcement perspective? Is there a gap there, or is that all the folks who are out there engaging with the public in law enforcement activity?
Our sworn personnel number is 60. So the 6 people that are not wearing cameras are the rank above lieutenant, including the sheriff.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Renee, you have a question?
Yes, I do want to follow up to that. What was do you know what the rationale is of that? Why is it that it stopped at a lieutenant? Is it that it is the understanding that anybody above a lieutenant doesn't interact with the public?
No. However, again, after collaborating with other agencies at a state and national level, that was what was
That's how they do
decided
it.
on how we were going to do our policy, correct?
Excuse me, I just want to make sure I'm clear. Is that because that's how the other agencies that you use to benchmark do it as well?
That is what they do.
Okay,
Every agency's different. That is what we've elected to do.
okay. And then with respect to the recordings, you all said, in here, you said it's according to a policy. I didn't really hear the policy detail. Is it written somewhere? So we will know how long the recordings are maintained?
Yes, part of the retention period is when our general order, when our policy, which isn't on the website yet, but we're working on that. It will be up there shortly where you can see the retention period for all the recordings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is that it, Renee?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Brenda, do you have any questions? She's on. Okay. All right.
No, not at this time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening. How's everybody doing? Thank you. Appreciate your time to let us explain a little bit about our agency. I've got several of our members here. They'll introduce themselves when they come up, as they will come up. So we can go ahead and start the PowerPoint for us. With the Howard County Police Department, obviously, we are full service in Howard County. We are accredited through CALIA. This is our organizational chart. I have 509 sworn officers and 238 civilian personnel. I'm not going to go through every single command that we have, but I will take any questions that you have, and I'll highlight the big ones that we have here. So obviously, I'm the Chief of Police. Professional Standards Bureau is commanded by the captain. It's the Internal Affairs Division, which you folks will be dealing with quite often. Education and training, we have our own education and training center, the Academy, named after Senator Roby. Quality assurance, and we have our Bodyboard Camera division. These field commands are operated by majors. Field command operations is headed by Major Baker, who's here. Special operations by Major Zerk. Criminal investigations by Major Ehart, and our administrative command is commanded by Major Marshall. Within these commands, they're broken down to the specifics. Again, a lot of personnel here. The most interaction you folks are going to have on the investigative part is going to be under professional standards and internal affairs. My chief of staff, Rick Jones, is also here. Strategic planner, Tammy Bull, I think most people know her. And then we also have an internal communications person that's not here today. But we're going to go ahead with the next slide. We're going to introduce Major Baker. He's going to go into the nuts and bolts of our community policing, and then the rest, and we'll take any questions that you have at the end.
Good evening. I'm
Good
Justin
evening.
Baker. I'm the Major Deputy Chief in charge of Field Operations, which is our Community Services Bureau, and then all of our patrol officers. So we have 176 patrol officers right now, or our strength is 176. We're a little less than that right now. We have some vacancies. And then, of course, the county exec has authorized us another 24 officers beginning in October. So we'll be hopefully at 200 if we can get to our staffing. So if you ever look at our patch, there's a Latin phrase on there that says pro bono publico, which is for the good of the public. And part of that community policing is stretched throughout our whole department. So we have our own Community Services Bureau, which encompasses our Community Outreach Division. So we have specific officers and supervisors that focus on community outreach. But I think as a command staff and as the chief, we stress community outreach throughout the entire department, from every sworn officer through every commander. So for instance, our Special Operations Command encompasses our Traffic Management Division. And part of that is teaching students about safe driving, right? Going out to schools and teaching that kind of stuff. Our Criminal Investigations Division, we have Victim Assistance Services. So we really try to stress community policing throughout the entire agency. Underneath our patch, a lot of times you will see 3 pillars that we go on: integrity, pride, and community. So that community is stressed throughout the entire agency. If you could hit the next slide for me. Like I said, we have, since I've been here in 2000, I've been here 22 years, we have modeled community policing from the time you enter the police academy till the time you get promoted through the ranks. We believe that those partnerships help strengthen our problem solving and our ability to solve crime, right? Our ability to be open and have people come to us and feel comfortable filing complaints, right? I was in charge of internal affairs for almost 4 years. And it's not an easy thing sometimes for somebody to come, even another officer, right, to come and file a complaint against another officer. So, we try to stress throughout the whole entire agency community policing. If you could get the next slide, please. We do have some formal partnerships with different organizations in the community. We meet with regularly the African American Community Roundtable of Howard County, Luminous, Center for New Americans, the Korean Society of Maryland, and PFLAG are some of the formal partnerships that we have. And then we have a ton of other informal partnerships, like the Howard County Autism Society, the Muslim Council, Howard County Drug Free. We have a great partnership with Grassroots, where we work with their MCT, the Mobile Crisis Team. We go out and help people that are, experiencing distress in the community. The National Alliance of Mental Illness, Rebuilding Howard County, and then just a plethora of local community churches and village boards that we go out to. The chief and I were at the River Hill Village Board community meeting about 2 weeks ago, speaking about certain issues that they have in that community specifically. So we try to get out as much as we can on that. I think that is all I have from the community outreach, and I'll answer any questions at the end. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Rhonda, and I'm the policy coordinator for the police department. And I just want to kind of give you a very quick overview of how policy development works. So the first step when we either write a new policy or revise an existing one is the planning, analyzing, and research and writing phase. So this is where we solicit input from our subject matter experts to determine the complexity of the issues, organizational impact, available resources, and to make sure that the framework of the policy aligns with what the members who are held responsible for that policy actually do. So we pull model policies and best practices from national and state databases, and we have excellent working relationships with other jurisdictions in Maryland who we reach out to as well. Depending on the subject matter at hand, we also solicit input from our community partners, as Major Baker just spoke to. So once it gets through that extensive process, we then send it to all of our lieutenants in the department for review and comment. Once approved there, it goes to all of our captains. After that, it is reviewed for CALIA compliance, and Ms. Bullough will be speaking more to our accreditation in just one moment. The policy then gets reviewed by our Office of Law for legal sufficiency and subsequently sent to our police unions. It then goes to all 4 majors and our chief of staff for approval. And at the end of all that, it then goes to our chief for review and signature. Hopefully that gives you a broad overview of how policy gets made, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Bullough.
Thank you.
So since we're talking tonight about our policies, we wanted to make sure you've understood how policies were developed. And one of the things we wanted to make sure you understood is the accreditation role in that. So long before the Police Accountability Board, the police department sought ways to have accountability. And one of the ways they sought back in 1990 was to become an accredited agency. Not every law enforcement agency in Maryland is accredited yet. What we call the Big Seven, all the big agencies around us, and most of the agencies in the state, larger states, are accredited, but it's not required. I point that out because it's just really important to understand that the police department voluntarily sought out that level of oversight. And an example I often use is I don't believe that you would send your child to a college that wasn't accredited. And you probably wouldn't put your daughter in a hospital that wasn't accredited. We're a society that expects agencies that are entrusted with vital things meet accountability, meet compliance. And so what accreditation did was allow us to achieve that. And CALIA accreditation specifically is just one part of it. So all of our policies and practices are governed by that commission. In addition to that, we have other forms of external review. For example, we have a child advocacy center, a remarkable facility in which we deal with the most vulnerable victims imaginable. And it is also accredited through the National Children's Alliance. Next, we have a forensics lab. All of you know the importance of handling evidence appropriately. So naturally, that lab has to be certified. And they are certified through the state under COMAR 1051 for forensic laboratories. The fourth type I want to just lightly touch on is the Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission. And they have hundreds upon hundreds of objectives that we must meet for the training and performance of our officers. So that commitment to external review and compliance has been in place with Howard County Police Department for a long time. We're certainly glad that the next level of it comes with you fine folks, but we've had that, as you can see, for some time. And then when we talk about the commission specifically, we want you to understand that the commission isn't just a single entity. Over 40 years ago, the 4 leading professional organizations for law enforcement came together and they recognized that there needed to be a set of standards. And those 4 organizations was the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the International Associations of Chiefs of Police, the Police Executive Research Forum, and the National Sheriff's Association. So the 4 most recognized entities came together to set up the initial standards, to set up the process. And they continue to be part of the regulation and the input format of that process even to this day. So we are pleased to be a part of that. We are pleased to have the next level present with us today. And then we like to cover any questions you might have on that the introductory part that talked about the organization of the department and how we bring policies together. And if there aren't anything, we'll go right into the next policy.
Yeah, can we hold everything to the end?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Speak today. My name is Lieutenant Chris Valentine. I'm the Commander of Internal Affairs here for Howard County. We're here with the complaint process for you. Slide, please. So just a quick, how do we intake complaints? We receive in multiple ways. Captain Granger talked about it's always similar to the sheriff's office. Obviously, we get it from the PAB as they come in, but also field supervisors out in the field can receive a complaint and are required to take them. Anybody can walk into the police station and submit a complaint. Call it internal affairs. They can go online and they can fill out the form. They can either email it to us or they can mail it to us. Also, we accept them through social media. We've gotten through social media as well. So multiple different ways we can see complaints. Essentially, every complaint that we get comes through internal affairs and we review them and determine who's going to be assigned to investigate that complaint. So basically, what is a complaint? It's an allegation of police misconduct. It's how we define it and what is police misconduct. Under the new Police Discipline or Police Accountability Discipline Act, they define what police misconduct is. There, Captain Granger talked about, so I'm not going to try to double up and talk about stuff that he already did. So that's the section right there. That is a law of what is police misconduct. Next slide, please. So when we receive a complaint, we basically break it down into two different categories. Is it a conduct type of complaint or performance type of complaint? A conduct type of complaint generally falls under our Admin 12 Code of Conduct. It's a very robust and detailed policy that essentially dictates how our officers are to conduct themselves with the public as representing the agency. Part of those, some examples underneath, it falls under Code of Conduct, insubordination, truthfulness issues, improper interactions with the public, improper interactions with department members also. If it goes out as a performance issues generally are not generally malice in nature. It's an issue with the officer that they missed a step. They didn't do something they should have done because they forgot or something like that. And we identify those. It could be not doing proper follow-ups on investigations, not completing all required investigative steps in initial investigation, or just maybe they didn't write a report that they should have wrote because maybe they interpreted it wrong. We identify those issues. We do an investigation. If we determine there's no malice intent there, it's a performance issue, they're handled appropriately. Generally, those are handled with training, retraining. However, obviously, if we're seeing a recurring issue, progressive discipline takes place and more serious discipline will occur. Next slide, please. So who investigates complaints? IED does not investigate every single complaint that we get. We investigate almost all of them, but not always. We assume investigate for anything that's a serious nature complaint. So you like truthfulness issues, if there's allegation of criminal misconduct, use of force cases we consider serious, so we will investigate those automatically. However, minor natured complaints, like an example would be maybe just like straight up rudeness or just conduct unbecoming of an officer, or performance issue complaints may be delegated to a first line supervisor or administrator to do the investigation. So your first line supervisor would be a sergeant, administrator, or lieutenant to do the investigation. However, we can assume any investigation we want. So we may have a minor in nature complaint or performance issue, and IED may take it. And a lot of those reasons could be because maybe there's an ongoing issue with the officer, and we're looking at more progressive discipline. And so we're going to take it because you may end up going to trial board and more complex things. So we're going to take those investigations. They would not be delegated out to a first line supervisor. Slide, please. All right, so kind of getting into the investigative process. So we get the complaint in. First thing we're going to do is we're going to interview the complainant. Get a statement from them, ask follow-up questions, try to get more detail. We record all our interviews, so it's a clear record of what was said. There's no mistakes of what was said. Nobody's saying, well, I said that and that's not there. It's a clear record of everything that was said in that interview on both sides. We attempt to collect any physical evidence possible. So some examples up there: cell phone video, surveillance video, any documents that are obtained by the complainant. For instance, like if it's a use of force complaint and they have medical, they say, I saw my doctor and I was injured. We ask, can we get a copy of those? And we'll take a moment real quick to explain there's a difference between criminal investigations and administrative investigations. IED does not do criminal investigations. The reason for that is because there's different sets of rules that we have to play by. In an administrative investigation, if we ask for cell phone video from a citizen or surveillance video from a shop or medical documents, They cannot give it to them. They can say, no, I'm not giving that to you. And essentially, we can't go get a search warrant. We don't have that ability to do that. That's on the criminal side. So on a criminal investigation, they can write a search warrant. They can get information they have probable cause to write a search warrant or a court order. We don't have the ability to do that. However, in administrative internal documents, we as ID can get all sorts of administrative internally documents. So emails, if it's a department phone, a department vehicle, computer, we don't need a search warrant to go through those if it's departmentally owned property. Also, you have Bodywork Camera now with all that coming into play, all that kind of stuff. So we're also going to interview any other civilian witnesses, and then we get into the interview of the witness officers who are not the subject of the complaint, but maybe they were there. We interview them. We also issue interview officers that are subject to the complaint. However, they have the right to have representation present during that interview if they request it. Both interviews with our department personnel are compelled interviews, so they have to talk to us in an administrative interview. So it's what's called a compelled statement. Next slide, please. So once it's completed, there's two tracks. That what happens once the investigation is completed. So complaints that are involving a member of the public, whether they're internally identified or externally, the complaint comes in. Those go in front of the Administrative Charge Committee under the new law. Now, the Administrative Charge Committee can require an officer to appear. I'm not going to get too much detail because that was kind of going over the last meeting. But once they decide if the officer is to be administratively charged, they will make that recommendation to the chief. And he can either stay with that recommendation or increase it within the disciplinary matrix of the state. Now, internally reviewed, if we get a complaint in, or I'm sorry, if we identify a member on member, officer and officer complaint, that it does not involve a member of the public, that does not go to the ACC. Those examples would be like an insubordination case where a lieutenant orders a subordinate to do something they say I'm doing this. Doesn't involve a member of the public. So that's not going to go to the ACC. That is dealt with internally. Or like an officer that shows up to work late or doesn't show up at all. Doesn't involve a member of the public, so it stays internally. It goes in front of what's called our internal investigations review panel, which is made up of the four majors, deputy chiefs, the commander of the Professional Standards Bureau, the chief of staff, and the captain of the accused officer. They will review, file the investigation, and determine if there's enough evidence there to go forward and discipline the officer. And then they will just make a recommendation to the chief on the proper discipline. Next. One thing I wanted to point out was there is a statute of limitations on complaints. This is under Public Safety Article Section 31113C. It states that the process of review by the investigating unit through disposition by the Administrative Charge Committee shall be completed within 1 year and 1 day of filing of the complaint by a citizen. So from the day that we receive it from the citizen, we have 1 year to investigate it, 1 year, 1 day to investigate it, give it to the ACC, and the ACC make a decision. Slide, please. So law enforcement officer Bill of Rights, kind of touched on it at the beginning here. Due to collective bargaining agreements, LEOBR is still in effect for sergeants and below, and that's permitted due to the House Bill 670 having a provision in there that any collective bargaining agreements that are entered into on or before June 30, 2022, if they have any disciplinary actions or how it's investigated in their stance until its expiration. I'm not gonna get too much detail on that, but we do. The sergeants have their own collective bargaining agreement, and then corporals, PFCs, and POs, police officers, have a different collective bargaining agreement. Both have LEOBR provisions written in them. So investigations for sergeants and below will still fall under the LEOBR process, which I'll describe in the next slide. But lieutenants and higher fall under the new process. So the new law, because they're not covered by collective bargaining agreement.
Which would be the disciplinary matrix, right?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
LEOBR process, next slide, please. So just to kind of really quickly discuss that, really nothing has changed on how the complaint is investigated. The process steps that we have to follow to do an investigation, those rules. What really has only changed is what's the difference between the LEOBR process and the new law, Police Accountability Disciplinary Act, is procedural. Examples being under LEOBR, it's specific in there, there's procedural, who can interview an officer, sworn personnel. The date and location of where they have to be interviewed. Be on duty has to be at somewhere convenient in the county to be interviewed. So that was under LABR. That's not under Police Accountability Act. However, the meat and potatoes of how we do an investigation, the rules we have to follow for to actually do an administrative investigation are still the same. The real difference comes into after the investigation process. So those cases falling under LABR will be reviewed by the internal investigations review panel that I described in the previous slide. They will make if there's enough to substantiate the allegation, make a disciplinary recommendation. If the officer doesn't accept it and wants to take it to a trial board, then the trial board process under LABR is of law enforcement officers, and the chairpersons of the captain, lieutenant, 2 other board members, one is sergeant, and another one of equal rank to the accused. So that's the LABR process. And one thing I wanted to point out also, the Captain Granger talked about was, we also have a victim advocate. It's actually a civilian. Her name's Tammy Halligan. She's our victim advocate in our agency. And she's the one that reaches out with the civilian complainants, keeps them updated on the process, lets them know what's going on, explains decision-making process. To answer your question, we still do the letter when that we get a complaint. I send a letter to the complainant letting them know that, hey, we received your complaint. It's been assigned to this investigator. You can follow up with this investigator, or they'll reach out to you in a week or two. Also, Tammy Halligan is our victim rights advocate, and she can be contacted here. She may be reaching out to you also. And then we do periodic updates with the complainant by letter, letting them know, hey, we're still investigating. If you have any questions, you can reach out. And then when the complaint is resolved and whatever the outcome is, they get a letter that's signed by the chief, letting them know what the disposition of the case was, and if there was disciplinary action taken, that we took disciplinary action for the violation. And that's all I have. Any questions?
We still got one more part, right?
Yeah.
We'll just let it sit in. Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jason Janowich. I am a 24-year veteran of the police department. And right now I am the division commander of the newly formed Bodyboard Camera division. In my division, I have.
Congratulations.
Thank you. In my division, I'm lucky enough to have 2 technicians. They're police officers, they're sworn members. So it's just not me, it's 2 other members. And I'm going to be doing the overview for the Bodywork Camera program. So Admin 31, as you see, is our body-worn camera policy. It was established and completed in May of 2022. And it was completed using a collaborative effort involving multiple internal groups inside the police department. Also, we consulted with other jurisdictions and we reviewed national best practices. And then we also took it a step further. We met with the various community groups within the county to seek feedback. So some of the things I'm going to talk about are going to be redundant to the sheriff's department, and some are going to be unique to us. So if I repeat something, just bear with me. Next slide. So our policy is on the Howard County Police website. It's available for the public. Anybody can go in there and read the policy. Just like Lieutenant Bear said, our program just went live on August 15th. So we're in our 4th week. Our agency, all uniformed officers who regularly interact with the public as part of their duties are required to wear the camera. Right now, there are approximately 300 officers that have been issued the camera. And those officers and those groups include patrol, cops, traffic, SRO, which is the school resource officers, and our tactical section. Each of these members has been issued 2 cameras to allow them to always have one available to them. And these members are required to wear these cameras on their uniform when on duty, with the exception of training, when they're wearing play clothes, or if they're wearing their ceremonial uniforms. So this is the cameras, like Lieutenant Bear I showed you a little bit. Officers are required to activate this camera for legitimate law enforcement purposes only. It's not to go home and record TikTok videos or anything like that. It's a police equipment. It's to be cared for. When this camera is turned on, it's placed in the ready mode. Right. So when it's in ready mode, that this camera, like the lieutenant was saying, is going to be constantly taking video in. Our buffer is set for 60 seconds. So when I'm in ready mode, I'm buffering, but you have to remember, it's only video, no audio for those 60 seconds. So when I activate it, Then it goes into recording mode, which will capture those 60 seconds prior. You just have to remember, there's no audio for those 60 seconds, but once I hit this, and how to turn it on, you just hit this button twice, makes a noise, and then the audio starts. So if you're ever in a position to see a recording, there's no audio, it's because it was in buffering. There, like the lieutenant said, our department, there's 3 ways to have these automatically turned on. We have the signal sidearm devices on our holsters. So if an officer has that device, they withdraw their handgun, it will activate any camera in the Bluetooth area. 30 feet is a good, we've had some that are a little bit further, some a little closer, depending on the building, if you're out in open space. The same thing with the single vehicle. On our agency, if you turn the lights on your police car, the front and rear lights on, it will turn a signal out. Anybody in that area, their cameras will turn off. Our department's a little different. A third option, we have taser. Right? So if an officer takes the taser out and powers it on, any camera in that area will also activate. So we have basically 4 ways to turn on the camera manually, and those 3 automatic features. When officers interact with citizens, they are required to notify the citizen that if they're being recorded at the beginning of the contact or as soon as safely possible, consistent with training. So if officers are maybe in their patrol car and they pull up and they see 2 people actively fighting, right? Their job is to go out and try to interact. Their first thing, they're not going to say, I'm recording you. They're going to, when it's safe to say that, they will do that. So, but our officers have all been trained. They're required to give this notification. Every effort will be made to provide language assistance to citizens who are limited or non-English proficient to understand that they are being recorded. Officers shall not intentionally deactivate the camera without a clear investigative purpose, and they have to document it both in verbal on the camera. They have to say, I'm deactivating for whatever reason, and they also have to write that in a written report. So it's also verbally, and then when I'm doing my report of the incident I'm handling, you have to write down the reasons why. So it's a double catch-all there. There are some special circumstances with body-worn camera, and Lieutenant Bear, he talked about it a little bit. Consistent with training, recordings will not take place within an area where there's a reasonable expectation of privacy recognized by the 4th Amendment. Additionally, when we respond to hospitals or medical facilities, officers are taught to refrain from activating the body-worn camera until necessary for the investigation or other law enforcement purposes. To the extent possible, officers will avoid recording staff and persons other than the law authorities. So we're talking about if you're going into a hospital, which happens quite often, we're not hitting record outside and walking through the whole ER trying to find our victim, recording every doctor and nurse and patient in there. We're going to be trying to turn that on when we're dealing with the person we're there for. And you know, it's obvious that we don't want to have unnecessary things that are protected on this camera. And the third thing that's a special circumstance, we do have SROs, school resource officers, and we do have officers that respond to schools quite often. So a lot of times, you know, like the SROs interact with students constantly throughout the day. They're not required to turn their camera on unless it's for a legitimate law enforcement purpose. So body-worn camera evidence. What happens is if I do hit that twice, it starts a recording, right? The recordings on here are saved. It's this device itself. It's almost indestructible. It's waterproof. It's very safe in this camera. What we do is, and we dock it. All right, when you dock it, there's a little kind of like a USB hole at the bottom. We dock it in a dock. Our docks are all in police facilities. They're secure. They're locations. They're safe. They dock it. It digitally uploads the videos to a secured site. The uploaded digital evidence is stored in our records management system, and we have a very detailed policy that governs that system, which is General Order Admin 67, which is also available to the public, available on our website. Officers do not have the capability to delete their body-worn camera video. So it's not that they can't even try. They don't have a capability. They cannot do it. So once if I hit this button twice, when I dock this, it's gone. I can't do anything. It exists now. As far as the evidence, consistent with the national best, next slide, please. Consistent with the national best practices, specifically the Department of Justice and Police Executive Research Forum, officers may review their body-worn camera recordings related to the incident prior to completing and submitting any written requests. Next slide. As far as body-worn camera review, officers' supervisors are required to review an officer's video in 2 situations. They're required to review it when there's a use of force. They have to review the video unless CIB is investigating that case or reference that officer. The other time is they have to review it if there was an officer might come to and said, you know, listen, Sergeant, this is going to be a complaint. They're required to do that. Or if that sergeant has already received the complaint, they're required to then go in that evidence. They're required to look at the digital camera evidence. As far as some reviews and checks, we have watch commanders and division commanders. They're responsible for reviewing random videos monthly. And they not only have to review the videos, they have to review that report that we talked about and make sure they line up. They have to do that monthly, and any minor policy violations that are observed are addressed by the officer supervisor or commander. Any major policy violations shall be forwarded through the chain of command to the commander of the Professional Standards Bureau for review and possible referral to an Internal Affairs Division. Next slide. For audits, suspected criminal activity shall be forwarded through the chain of command to the Deputy Chief of Criminal Investigations Command for possible investigations by that appropriate division. The staff inspection, which is housed in the Chief's office, they are going to conduct regular reviews of the body-worn camera program, including the body-worn camera division, the Information Management Division, Digital Body-Worn Camera Management section, which basically is our record section that's in charge of the body-worn camera video once it's uploaded. All body-worn camera video recordings will be maintained in compliance with the Maryland State-approved Howard County Police Department retention schedule and compliance with other applicable laws. HCPD will release body-worn camera footage consistent with other Maryland Public Information Act and other applicable state and federal statutes in consultation with the Howard County State's Attorney's Office. Each video will be assessed on a case-by-case basis to ensure a timely release without negatively impacting a criminal investigation or prosecution. Anything that's on captured on the video that's private information will be redacted prior to the video's release in compliance with all records release laws. And those laws are similar laws like HIPAA. So our records management system, records division will look at the video, they will see any information on there, and we'll be able to blur the screen or take that information out so it's not released out to the public and protect it. And that's all I have.
Thank you. So we're down to questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Okay, Anita, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I do not have any, thank you.
I think my question was anticipated and already answered.
That's why I said if we allow them an opportunity, you know, we can kind of like get through this quickly.
I do have a question. Just the same question for the sheriff department. What are the consequences of officers not turning on their cameras when they should be?
Okay, so our policy is a little different with the sheriff's department. Anytime we have contact with citizens, we're required to turn them on. So it's not a question of we have that choice.
Okay.
So obviously, like Lieutenant Bear said, that this is a very early on in our process. We kind of had several times where we thought we were going to go live with the process. So we started training our officers a long time ago. We've had a lot of training on it. So our officers, and part of this, my job is to review those videos. Our officers are doing a really good job. But just like anything else, anything else in an agency or any other things, that there is level of discipline involved if there's repeated offenses. I haven't seen that at all yet, but just like anything else, it would be handled like any other issue or policy violation in the police department, because it is in our policy.
Thank you. Jim, do you have any questions on the
Yes, I have two questions, if I may. I noted that as the body-worn camera policy was being developed, that there was consultation with the community. So full disclosure, I was part of some of that community engagement. And with the Police Accountability Task Force, we made several recommendations for consideration as that policy was being developed. I'm pleased to say that General Order Admin 31, it contains any number of policy requirements that are certainly consistent with what we consider to be best practices. So generally, a good job. Two concerns, though, and leading to my two observations and questions. The first one, I think, was touched on in the presentation. One of our recommendations was that the body-worn camera policy should not permit a police officer who may be implicated in potential misconduct of a serious nature to view the related body-worn camera recording before filing a report and being interviewed. And I think it's fair to say there's a split on this in the country. There are hundreds of departments that allow that access and hundreds of departments that don't. And there are some organizations that recommend that the officer have access before being interviewed and some that don't. And I'll cite the ACLU model policy for body-worn camera programs, which specifically supports the recommendation that we made. And of course, hundreds of police departments in the country that do not allow the police officer to have access to the body-worn camera recording before filing a report. And I think it's important, and I wanted to raise it and ask, in fact, that you give some consideration to looking at this again, because I think generally that approach undermines accountability, which of course is what we're focused on, because it removes, and I'm mindful of a conversation I had with State's Attorney Gibson precisely in this area, where he was making the same point with respect to access to body-worn camera recordings. It does remove the opportunity for the investigator to assess the credibility and veracity of the officer in question by comparing his report to the body-worn camera recording. It's a basic principle of investigations. And I think it's, in this case, that provision is just tipped too far away from accountability. And so again, I ask that you consider reconsidering and looking again at that provision. And the second observation, or the second recommendation we made at the time that wasn't picked up in the policy, was to grant the PAB access to body-worn camera recordings as part of our work. The policy does contain a long list of county officials and employees, including the State's Attorney's Office and various departments in the police, in the Howard County Police Department, that can have access in the performance of their duties, but it does not list the PAB, despite our recommendation that it do. So my question, not to be answered now, is why not the PAB? That may have a legitimate reason to look at body-worn cameras as part of its accountability work. It's silent at the moment, and I certainly hope that if we felt as a board that we should be looking at a particular recording for accountability purposes, that we would be granted that access, but it's not specified in the policy. So I ask again for you to consider including the PAB as one of the organizations, one of the county organizations that in the exercise of its duties can have access to recordings.
You can answer that if you like. I think the answer, if I can, says they probably have considered everything already, especially if you've made this recommendation before. I mean, it's perfectly okay to address it again.
Sure. So
Well, just on that point, Nellie, I'll answer that point. My understanding is that there is a review.
Hold on a second, Jim. Let him answer, and he may clarify for both of us, and then you can have the floor.
Thank you. So we did take recommendations from a lot of different groups, and we appreciate the input that we did get from the PATF. Again, this is new. This is training. This is new. We're open for suggestions for everything. As far as reviewing cameras and not reviewing cameras, depending on the circumstance, we are looking at that. We are looking at, if an officer is involved in some type of criminal activity where he's arrested, probably whether he should review the camera or not review the camera. So we are looking at that. As far as the PAB gaining access to the body-worn cameras, I know you talked to State's Attorney Gibson. There is an issue with folks reviewing the cameras that aren't involved in the criminal process. There's not involved in the prosecution of these folks. When we record something and it's going to go to court, the state's attorney has a lot to say of who will review some of this information, who will not. Some of the things have to be redacted. There's information. I will say that, that certain body worn camera footage, in time after the incident goes, after the incident has been adjudicated and goes through the process, I would say there probably would be several cases where not only the PAB, but certain individuals can view the body worn camera. He's not able to give that access carte blanche to the Police Accountability Board at this time. And most of that is because of prosecution.
Does that answer your question, Jim? It answers mine, but if not, you can rephrase it or ask another question.
Pleased to hear that the first recommendation or parts of the first recommendation remain under consideration in certain circumstances, Chief Durr. So look forward to further work and further indications on that. With respect to the PAB having access to the body-worn camera recordings, we're charged with a statutory responsibility to work with the police department to improve matters of policing in the area of accountability. And I feel that there will be a substantial limitation on our ability to do that work if we cannot, as part of our work, have access to those body-worn camera recordings where there is a serious question of police accountability being implicated. So I hear you, Chief Durr. Absolutely, I hear you, and I think there's a balancing of interests here. And I think that from the PAB's my perspective on behalf of the PAB, as one of the members of the PAB, is that is not balanced sufficiently for the PAB's new role in accountability in this county.
I think, let me speak to that. Our role is not investigatory. And I think that at this point, as chair, and anyone else can absolutely feel free to chime in, I don't really see a need. I have to think about it a little more, but at this point, I think what the chief has said in terms of after the investigation and so forth has been completed, I think our role would be to kind of look at it from a policy standpoint. We'll be able to collect the data, for a year or whatever, and then come up with something. But in terms of the front end, I'm not sure that that we need that. But if that's totally up to the
If I can just speak real
please.
quick. I will say this, that when the internal investigation is complete and it goes to the administrative charge committee, they will have the body worn camera.
Yes.
That'll be part of the investigative file.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see that we are going to open up all of our body worn camera video to the PAB. We don't even provide the state's attorney's office carte blanche to review body worn camera video. They only get video that is a part of a criminal prosecution.
Yes, I understand that. And what I was talking about is that at the end of the year, when we have to talk about policy and so forth, I think that's when, perhaps we will get your report in terms of because you said you categorized it, you can just tell us, you had this incident, that incident, but on the front end, I don't see a role for the PAB. But if anyone else, yes, Paul.
What I was just gonna say is that the administrative charging committee will review any type of complaints that come in through the video because they have access to that. I don't think the entire board needs to see that. I think that the administrative charging committee can make a representation to the board on what the facts have found out. And at that point, if the board really feels a necessity to have to see it, then we can refer that to the chair and go from there.
My thoughts would be the same as
Yes,
Mr. Rivers.
yes, go ahead, speak.
My thought would be the same, Mr. Rivers, that the charging committee should be the one that, not the board primarily.
I'm talking. Brenda, are you talking? Was someone else talking?
I raised my hand, and I'm sorry for the feedback.
Oh, no, that's okay. Go right ahead.
Oh, okay. I know this is just an intro, and we're collecting information to determine what our role really is. And I think it's going to be, I would like to suggest that we keep all options open. I think there's been some good dialogue and good information provided. We have a lot to learn still. And so if I could ask, we take all suggestions, to heart and reconsider them, because I think the last meeting we were all talking about we talked about sort of brainstorming because this is all new to everyone.
Yes, it is new, and that's why we're having this discussion, so, okay. Anyone else want to add anything in terms of, you know? Okay, well, I have a couple of comments.
Well, I wonder if I could, I wonder if I could just respond. First of all, certainly agreeing with Brenda that I think that some further discussion between us as board members as we go up the learning curve, Brenda, to your point, it's all new to us here as we try and understand a role. I think a discussion of the role is going to be a real value, a brainstorming discussion of the role, because Nellie, you're absolutely right. We do not have an investigative role. It's not written into the MPAA. It's not written into the Howard County legislation that brought about the PAB. And certainly, I'm not suggesting that we would engage in any investigative role. That is for the law enforcement agency, and that is for the ACC to review. And that's very clearly defined. But there is an upfront role for the PAB. And I think that's at the front end of a significant investigation or a significant critical incident in this county. It's what's been missing in some of the more tragic cases across our nation, is a role for accountability at the front end of the process. So I would welcome the opportunity, in agreement with Brenda, for a much fuller discussion of what the role of the PAB should be, because I believe that to state it in the terms, Nellie, that you have, is to diminish the role of the PAB, certainly from my perspective.
Okay, thank you. We will continue this discussion for sure, no question about it. I wrote some notes, so just give me a second. On the notice of the recording, when an incident happens, what happens when that person is not notified? I can see situations where in the heat of the moment, the officer will not say, oh, I'm recording, because they have to like address the situation, okay? They have recorded, but they have not informed the person. So
in our policy, it says that the officer will make notification as soon as
okay.
and safely as possible. So it's also in our, when I was talking about it, we kind of have our video and we have our reporting system too. If there is a situation where I'm not able to give notification right away or I forget, I have to document that in my report.
Okay, the other thing, and I would suggest that as soon as you find out, you let that person know by letter, by whatever, because then we don't want to, we don't want that lagging. Well, that person didn't know, you didn't tell me, you had an opportunity to tell me even at a later date and you did not. So I would make that suggestion. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is that I wonder how much the public has really been informed about the PAB. You know, I know it's been read, but is there like discussions in the community and you know, like, I know it's on the website, but how many people go to the website? So I'm just wondering if we.
Well, I'm happy to say that a lot of people go to our website.
Okay.
The police website, and more importantly, the police presence on social media is one of the largest interaction for all the county departments of county government. So
talk about that a little bit. Talk about the social.
One of the things that Howard County Police is probably renowned for is how well they have used social media to get information out. So we have various platforms. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have various platforms, and each one, we don't deliver the exact same message on each one because we want it to be interesting. So a lot of the public information pieces might be on Instagram, but a lot more of the information about getting announcements out of our police accreditation hearing or the upcoming police accountability board we might do on Facebook. And the number of followers we have is amazing. I wish I had the numbers I could share it because it's that impressive. So we have been very effective at getting information out that way.
Okay, good.
One of the things that Chief Durr did when he became chief is he made a point of sitting down with every community organization that we had on the books and speaking about where we are as an organization and what was coming. And one of the key things he did talk about was the Police Accountability Board, because it's a hot topic. He meets monthly with our Citizens Advisory Council. Here's another group, not oversight, not necessarily accountability as you might think this is, but here's a group of citizens that has existed for over 20 years now that comes together on a monthly basis to be our eyes and ears within the community, to get information both in and out, and they meet with the chief to share that information. He advised them on multiple occasions about the progress of the Police Accountability Board. Briefing sheets were provided, information was provided, and then they go out in the community and they talk, and then they talk to other people and they talk. So we have made a great effort to get the information out there. We're proud to be a part of something that's showing that level of transparency and accountability. So we promote it every chance we get. We have
I
other,
wonder if, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
we have other organizations such as the Police Foundation that's more business owners. Than individual community members. And so they also are another set of eyes and ears that gets us out there. So we've done a lot to share that information. We have been eager to make sure that people are aware of it. And one of the things that the lieutenant spoke about, you can make a complaint against our department in multiple ways. You could come to the PAB. Before you could come to the PAB, you could always go to the police department, but you could also go to the Office of Human Rights, or you could go to the state's attorney's office. There's always been lots of ways. So promoting more ways is just one more way of encouraging accountability and encouraging transparency that serves our purposes. We want people to trust us. When a cop shows up, if you trust them, the encounter is simply going to go better. So building that trust has been a foundation of our department for as long as it's existed. And the difference for how a person is perceived if they show up in a Howard County Police Department uniform, or they might show up in some other jurisdiction, might be how that person feels. Are they comfortable? Are they confident that they're going to be treated fairly and with respect? Are they worried that they're not going to be? So everything we can do to promote your existence helps our officers have better interactions in the field.
In that spirit, if I may, and I don't know the other locations where the complaint within social media that the person could go and put in a complaint, but I did look at the PAB site, or the site that we currently have, and it has a big contact us at the top and some other information, and then like in the middle of the text of the body, there's a small, put in a complaint. I think it's in a different color, but a suggestion is put that next to contact us in a box on the top, so this is more visible for the people to be able to access that.
So although we don't control your website, we do control our website.
So then the button that you click will prompt you to have a whole entire form where you can explain everything on it, and that comes directly to me. Go ahead.
We can discuss that in terms. That's fine.
But if you click on the police department, if you search the words, file a complaint or file a compliment, it takes you right to the site. You're able to click right there. Because we're never trying to hide that. We're trying to promote it. We want people to file a compliment or file a complaint.
You get compliments?
We get compliments. And one of the other things the lieutenant touched on is that maybe your complaint comes to us by social media. People don't always want to formalize things, but they'll air everything on social media, right? So we post something about something we've done, and somebody will make a complaint on that in the comment section, and they aggressively find out everything they can. So we're not shying away from these, we're looking for them. We touched earlier on anonymous complaints. So you're not allowed, believe it or not, to accept an anonymous complaint. Under the state law, there have to be certain elements present, okay? But under accreditation, the program that we are bound by, we have to accept anonymous complaints, okay? He may not be able to identify that it was specifically Officer Jones at this date and this time, but there could be enough information that he can launch an investigation and identify things that we want to address. So we choose to handle anonymous complaints. I won't say we get a lot of it, but we also make that note, that's another way that you can do it. Even an online complaint could be an anonymous complaint. It could be, Snoopy Dog. We don't know who Snoopy Dog is, but we're still interested in what they've seen that makes them be upset with us, because we don't want that. We want to build confidence and trust in every interaction.
Well, and did I hear someone online, Jim, did you have something?
To Nellie, to your point about perhaps the public not knowing enough about the PAB yet, it's an idea that I just want to throw out in brainstorming mode, and I wanted to do it at our last meeting as well. I would love to join the police department and the sheriff's office at a community event as the PAB, to show that we are working as a team on issues that include accountability as well as effective law enforcement, community reach out, and all the other tenets that are involved in county policing. So I throw out the idea, and I'll be more than happy to come and sit at a desk and talk about the PAB at a community event at some point in the future, and invite our colleagues to do so as well.
Thank you. We'll certainly consider that. Well, I can speak for myself, and please chime in members and anyone else. I really enjoyed this. I learned a lot. I did a lot of reading and research before I came, and most of my questions were answered. And for those questions that were not answered and were not posed, I mean, after we go home and think about it, we may come up with something, we'll let you know. But I really appreciate the willingness to come out and just set things out for us, because that's gonna help us. And we're here to help you. I mean, it's like I said before, this is a collaborative effort. And I think I'm very proud of Howard County. I'm very proud of Howard County. And I was not aware of the social media. All my kids had left home. So I'll have to give me that learning curve. But I do know that people are on social media. And I think that's a great thing for the police department to be out there. I mean, goodness, we gotta get with that, and I just commend you for that. And also the community outreach. You hear all of the time, issues with police happen because you do not have a community outreach. And I'm so proud that Howard County has a very active community outreach with so many different organizations in our community. We are a very diverse community. And when I read this, I said, oh my goodness, just all over, people have an opportunity to engage in the police before we have a problem. I'm really big on explaining. I'm really big on the transparency, and that's what I felt here. And of course, as you know, I'm very transparent. I think everyone else here. There are no secrets here, and if we engage in this collaboratively, I think this experiment is going to work. I think I'm looking for us to be a model. I had no idea about all of the accreditation. That's huge. That is big time stuff. And that doesn't come lightly, and so I'm very, very pleased. And I really enjoyed and appreciate this discussion. I hope everyone else did also. And of course, come to us if we can help, just let us know. And we are going to be taking a look at Jim's suggestion about coming to some of the community meetings. I think that's a good idea, and we can kind of structure how that can happen. I'd love to have that. So we'll be working on that. And thank you, Jim, for that suggestion. My goodness. Well, you guys came to the first meeting. I'm really time conscious, okay? I appreciate everybody coming on time, getting all their questions answered. And if you go home and you think of something else, and you guys too, if you think of something else that we can help you with, just let us know, okay? So I appreciate everything. And are we done? Okay, we're done. Thank you.
Nellie, I wonder, I'm sorry.
Go right ahead. Go ahead.
I don't know if we are over or if we've got 15 minutes left. I think we were budgeted for 2 hours tonight.
Yes, we are.
I had suggested as an agenda item that we have a discussion around the ACC member appointments. And if we've got time to discuss that, I'd certainly like to have or continue the discussion that we started at the last meeting.
I think. Okay, Jim. Yeah, that is on the agenda for the next meeting. Okay. It was not on the agenda for today, so I don't know if people just came prepared, but certainly, we can talk about it on the 28th. And if you have, I think I've gotten some questions and comments from you already, so they would certainly be addressed.
I think one of the points that Jim was making as well is that I think the deadline for applying for the ACC is before our next meeting.
Exactly.
So he wanted to have some kind of conversation regarding that before the deadline came in. One of the suggestions that he made was maybe extending that deadline 2 weeks to the end of the month. Not sure if that's possible. I don't think it still meets our next meeting. But Jim, I don't know if that'll help.
We can certainly convene as a board before our next scheduled meeting. We can do it before the 15th. I'll just send out an email and see what the pleasure is. I have no problem at all. I think it's a good suggestion. It's just a point of timing. And so even if we don't formally meet, we can at least kind of exchange ideas and so forth. Okay.
Wait a minute.
Excuse me. Yes, sir.
You'd have to formally.
We have to formally, yeah. I was just correct. In order to formally exchange, we have to, in order to change ideas about the ACC, we have to formally, I told you it's a learning curve for me too. But okay, so we'll discuss that and get moving on. Thank you for the suggestion, and I think it's a good one. Well, that you have something else
So
to
just
say.
let me be clear
Yes.
about what he just asked for. Does that mean we're about to discuss it now?
No, we're not.
How
gonna
is it that
discuss
we're not going to discuss it now if the position closes on the 15th, I thought, which is 1 week from today? Our next meeting is supposed to be on the,
Fourth, I think, right?
28th.
It's the 16th, I'm sorry, it's not the 15th, it's the 16th.
nonetheless,
Close of business.
our next meeting though is it's the 28th, which would be after that, right?
Yes, it would be after that. And like I said, we can convene before that, even for this discussion. However, it's the closing date is on the 15th, okay? 16th, sorry. That does not preclude us from discussing anything after that.
But it doesn't
I understand what you're saying. It doesn't lead to.
It doesn't make any sense, right? From this perspective, at least based on what he said, right? If the position closes on the 16th, what he's asking is that we, one, look at the qualifications for that as well as extend the deadline. If you wait until the 28th, his question is moot. Because at that point, people will have already applied. Now, I don't know if that will be, then we will say, well, we're just gonna repost it. But that, I'm a little lost and confused based on just what he's asking for.
No,
I don't
understand.
see how we can kind of put it to a next meeting, and then that would mean, if you say let's have another meeting, we would have to have the meeting before the 16th so that it could be extended. So I don't know if it's gonna take a lot of time to discuss it, but it just seems to me that since we're here, why not just discuss it today? I don't know. I don't know how complicated.
Part of it is changing the qualifications of people that apply for the charging committee. So I think, first of all, we need to decide whether that's necessary.
Right, that's what my question is.
And
Why do we?
let me add this too. Can they be dismissed while we talking about?
If they want to.
Thank you, thank you guys, you did a great job, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, you did a great job, thank you.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
And then I just have an administrative question about this. Does somebody sign in the people who appear online? Did somebody sign me in at the last meeting? How does it work? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
You covered.
Okay.
Okay, well, go right ahead.
I wanted to jump in there before they left the room. I just wanted to piggyback on this notion of collaboration with the departments, and I wonder if we can ask them for maybe some type of formal suggestions that they could give us in terms of how we can help them best.
Okay, Brenda, you have like an echo of feedback. Do you have another device on or something? So you're coming in kind of garbled.
I'm listening through my phone, unfortunately.
And they're coming back in the room at your request.
So go ahead and ask them the question.
I wonder if you might be able to send us some ideas and suggestions as to what we can do to help you. How do we build that collaborative relationship?
Hey, Bill.
What do you need from us? So we think about that and maybe send ideas and suggestions to us.
Right now, we're being very respectful of what the law delineates as our role and your role, because it's our whole goal that we maintain our appropriate relationships, so there's no question about your oversight where it belongs and our participation. So we are encouraging you to follow us on social media in every way you can, so you can watch us and see what we're doing. We encourage you to direct people to contact us if there's questions. But I think it would probably be inappropriate at this early stage to make suggestions about our role expanding until such time as the board has established itself.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The only thing I'll say is that, being an independent board and having oversight, I personally, with the police department, would welcome you guys over here, but I think you guys have to be independent too. So you don't want to be everywhere we are, because there could be that impression that, oh, they're just part of the police department. So I know that we just have to step carefully along those lines too.
Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just suggesting that, we're not gonna overstep. We're just trying to figure out ways that you need us to.
Yeah, thank you. I think we understand, yeah.
We will invite you to consider things as a board. One of the things the chief has asked us to offer is the possibility that we might offer like a day in the life where you can learn more about the police department. So we're offering something similar to the county council members shortly, where we'll show them all aspects, not all aspects, but a condensed aspect of what a officer deals with in the course of their duties. So we could work collaboratively on something like that that helps raise your awareness and knowledge level of the expectations and demands on law enforcement. So the chief has asked us to sort of put something together for something for you to consider along those lines.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
Brenda, I think that speaks directly to your question.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Don't go too
Run
far.
fast. Run fast.
Okay, so we can continue with the discussion about the ACC. Yeah, we're very aware of time constraints. Did you want to say something about the ACC?
It was just consulting.
Oh, okay, okay. Please step in.
Well,
If you don't want to, okay.
no, it's fine. I believe the announcement that was sent out was initiated by the county exec's office. He gets, by law, he gets members on the ACC. The board by law also gets another 2 members on the ACC. So your selection process could be separate and independent of the
Right.
county exec's selection process.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to get legal advice on that, we'd have to go into a closed session. But what the law says is that the county exec gets 2 members and the PAB gets 2 members on the ACC.
If I understood the question for us is with respect to our 2 positions, what are those qualifications? And I think that's a discussion for us. And I don't think it's set in stone, and whatever we decide our qualifications would be, do not have to mirror what the county execs.
Exactly.
That's my understanding. So it's up to us.
Yep, I agree with that.
So can I just ask a question about the announcement that's already out? If this question had not been raised by Jim or anybody else, right? Would that mean that the announcement that closes on the 16th, there would have been 4 people who were identified?
No. No, this is just the application process. What you're talking, the 16th is the application. And that's online. You fill it out, I want to be, and so forth. Now, we decide.
As a group.
On who we want
Of
to
the
pick.
2 people.
So if I just make an observation, very, very quickly, the announcement that went out, that is now pending, was sent out on behalf of the county executive for his 2 selections and the PAB for our 2 selections. I don't think we had a lot of input into it. I certainly didn't. And what I've been suggesting is a slight course correction for our 2 appointments. We might articulate criteria to be discussed. There's a question, I think, at bar at the moment about whether we need to do that or not. We should have a chat about that. But my suggestion for consideration was a slight course correction where we would consider, and if we agree, communicate the qualifications and do a slight extension for our 2 appointments. We're not speaking about the county executive's appointments. That's his prerogative. That we might consider a short extension to allow our qualification criteria to get out there, to be communicated, so that we might influence some of the candidacies that are coming in. I understand we've not had there's not been a lot of responses to the solicitation to date.
So can I say something? I'm not opposed to us having another meeting in between then. But in the binder, it does say that no appointments will be made before September the 20th. So September 20th falls on, I want to say, a Tuesday. Was that right?
That doesn't mean it has to be done by the 20th.
Right, it does, right, that's what I'm trying to get to. It doesn't mean that we have to, that y'all, let me stop saying we. Y'all have to pick somebody by the 20th. That's not what it is. So I'm not, Not saying that y'all cannot have another meeting in between the period of it closing and then the 28th. That's not a problem. But we do not have to pick the people right then and there once it closes. That's what I'm trying to.
What, can I
That's
explain?
a little different. That's a little different than what Jim is saying.
We don't know who the candidates are yet.
Right.
We don't know what's in their resumes, we don't know what's in their background. If we get those applications in, we look at them and we see that there's nobody on there that we want to represent us on the charging committee, then we can re-advertise for the position
Correct.
and get somebody with those qualifications. I don't think we need to delay the process until we know that we don't have people that we want to serve on the charging committee.
Yeah, I see both sides, and I think what Jim and Arnetta was saying, I think,
I'm not saying anything, so.
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying this.
I'm sorry.
To get it resolved in a
That's
timely
all.
manner.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I misspoke. We don't have any criteria even to look at this point, okay? And I understand what you're saying, Herman. I think,
I think that's a good
what we're
approach.
best, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
think that's a good approach. What he
It
just
is,
suggested.
but I think I want everybody to be heard on this, and that's why I said, we need to discuss it. And I don't, there are just a lot of options here, so let's do this. Let's, adjourn this meeting, okay? And reconvene formally. Can we do it in the closed session?
What's the reason?
Okay.
It has to be a reason.
Yeah, I know. That's a real
Confidential
reason.
issues.
I tell you what, let's adjourn this, okay? Let's adjourn this, and then I will be consulting with everyone, including our attorney, on how to move forward with this. Because I don't want
Okay,
anybody,
Here's the issue. If you
Okay.
consult with everyone on this.
that's a meeting.
That is a meeting.
Okay, what if I just consult with you?
The-
No, I understand.
No, the chair can consult with me because the whole body wouldn't be present.
Mhm.
So I don't see an Open Meetings Act violation from the chair of the PAB consulting with me independently of a meeting. But if you want to consult with everybody, you need to note a meeting and advertise it. And I believe it has to be advertised for at least 3. Oh, is it just
24 hours?
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
so.
well, we need,
Can I turn mine into a motion that we consider?
okay, hold on a second,
Okay.
hold on, if you can hold it. Let me tell you my
You
concern.
can make a meeting before the 28th
Mhm.
if you all want to get together and discuss something.
This is my concern. I want to make sure everyone is heard on this. I think everybody has good suggestions, and I want to just put them together, okay? And I'm uncomfortable right now moving forward on this. So I think the best thing to do right now, and then you guys can kind of think about it and get back to me, is have another meeting. Now that, it has to be formal, it can be Zoom. But in order to do that, I want to, because we're not all over the place, but I hear different voices, and I want to make sure that all of them are considered. That's where I am on that. Is that okay? And if not, speak up and just tell me another suggestion. I'm absolutely.
Let me ask this question.
Yes.
It says that you or your designee could serve on the charging committee. Will we have a say in that?
Say that again?
My understanding, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, what it says, what he's saying is, it says that you get to choose, or your designee who serves on the charging committee
Yes.
from our board.
Yes.
He wants to know, do we have a say in that, on who we pick to put on that
It
board,
says you or your
or
designee.
your designee?
Well,
So,
we have two.
right, we have 2 people,
But
well, we
it
can put
says
2 people
you,
from the
but
board.
it says you.
Well, I might say the PAB appoints 2, and also Nellie as chair participates on the ACC or designee, I think is the point you're making.
Who
So
else is
that's the
talking?
third.
Jim, hold, time out.
Jeff,
Time out,
hold
Jim.
on a second. I don't know if we have a delay, but other people were talking. So if you can just let me know you want to say something, I'll be glad to recognize you. But as you were talking, other people were having conversations. So just hold your thought just for a moment.
Sure.
Second, did you say something?
As a matter of law, the statute states that the Police Accountability Board, the ACC will be composed of the chair of the Police Accountability Board or a designee. So Ms. Hutt would be permitted to decide whether she wants to serve herself or she's going to have a designee appointed in her stead. And the board also gets, the Police Accountability Board also gets another 2 members that will be appointed to the ACC, and then the county executive will select 2 members to go on the ACC. So it's a total of 5 members.
So, so me plus 2.
Right, the two, of the other 2, can any of them be actually on the accountability board and still be appointed and along with the chair?
As a matter of law, I don't see any prohibitions in the law that precludes the board from appointing a member of the board to the ACC.
Sorry. Okay, Jim, you can proceed. Go ahead.
Yes, and my apologies. I thought I had a momentary gap there, but clearly there's a time delay. So apologies there, Nellie, for talking over folks. And certainly we'll try not to do that. I hope to be in person in the future because this is hard work. Brenda, you might agree, but I just wanted to note that it's actually a question, and not seeking legal advice, but just to make the observation that that'll be an interesting process if the PAB is meeting to select one of its own for the ACC. Would that result perhaps in the need for the person being considered to refrain from voting, for instance? So I think we're going to need to think through the process.
Okay, I think it's a good observation. And that's kind of why I want to have another formal meeting because these are questions that I think we need to consider.
Okay. Good job. Good talk.
Thank you. Thank you all for the very good questions. Just like it's new for law enforcement, it's new for us too. So, but I love the effort here, the consideration and so forth. So
I have one question. So if y'all did want to meet like in between now and the 28th, I need a date.
Absolutely, right?
okay.
What are we looking?
Can you get it tomorrow morning?
Can we pick it now?
No, we can pick it down.
We have to pick it, right?
Yeah.
That's just, it's based on our availability. Brenda and Jim.
I'm back from the UK Monday night, so next week at anyone else's convenience would be good with me.
Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah, the 13th and the 14th.
Can everybody pull up their calendars, please?
I only have the 13th and the 14th available.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a minute.
Is that for next week or for the rest of the month?
No, we have to be next week because the applications are due.
So another thing. can
Either
we-
one of those 2 days is.
Would y'all want to still have the meeting on the 28th, or can we cancel out the 28th and just do something right after the closure of the application?
Well, see, the thing is, if we do before the application, which is gonna be the 13th or 14th, because I can't do the 15th, and the 16th it closes. That's what everybody, if my understanding is correctly, that's what everybody wanted. Then we have the 28th to put the final notice in. Doesn't have to be a long meeting on the 28th, it can be something short.
Can I make a quick observation?
Yes.
The press release that was released for applications was done by the county executive, which I just explained pursuant to the code gets 2 members. The board will get an additional 2 members. If the board selection of its members is independent of the county executive's selection of his members. From a legal standpoint, if the board chose to advertise for your app, because I don't know that anything in the law compels the county executive to share his applicant pool with the board. This is his applicant pool. There's nothing legally requiring him to do that. And the law does suggest that, or the law states that you all get your 2 members plus your chair or designee. So from a legal standpoint, there would be nothing that precludes the board from issuing their own advertisement for applicants.
And the date, we can have a date of past the 15th if that's what.
Well, the law also states that, I think you may have time, time.
30 days.
Sorry, the posting has to be for 30 days.
30 days.
Is that in the statute?
Yeah.
Right.
If I may, again, I would like to bring up, if we look at the applicants that, and the executive wants to share those applicants, If we look at those applicants and we don't want to select any of those applicants, then we can do our own.
Right.
And it kind of takes away the necessity of us having to meet on the 13th.
But would it, I guess you have to make a request to, the executive to see if he's willing to share, because like you said, he doesn't have to share them. So, and I'm assuming it will be after he selects his two, then okay, you can have the leftovers, is the way you can look at it.
Yeah, but that's the same thing. I mean, if it's a pool of, and I'll make up the number, it's a pool of 10. The executive takes his two, and we get to look at the other 8. Well, we're gonna pick the same 2, maybe, maybe not, but we're still gonna look at the other 8. If we don't like them, then we can re-advertise and do a whole nother board selection.
I mean, I agree.
So I think we should go with, I agree with what Herman says about, let's look at what we have. If we feel like we have to meet, I don't think we have to meet, but if we feel like we have to meet prior to that time, to the 28th, then we meet and we talk about what we're talking about now, because we won't have anything to look at except for what we're gonna talk about.
I think the concern though is timing, If the thought is that we want to ask the county executive to share it, then we need to make that request. But you don't know his timing or how they review things. You were gonna say, you do know?
He's already sharing it. The part of the process that he is sharing the pool with you.
Okay, so.
Thank you, so at least we know that.
That's resolved.
Okay, so at least we know that. We just have to officially make the request, or we don't have to make the
You don't have to
request.
make a request.
So it's just a matter of whenever he shares it, and then I agree.
Then if we don't
No.
like, then we don't need to meet. If we don't like the candidates, then we just go ahead and,
Now, the
Which
only,
would be after the 20th.
that's fine.
That's
We're
fine.
talking
That's
about
fine.
not having to do things right away.
okay,
If
but
we
now,
look at the candidates, we don't like them, then we can.
And not have to do things for.
and we're not wedded to the 20th.
Right.
We're not wedded to, okay,
No.
okay.
So we're good. So we don't really need
So
to
I
meet
think we're
next week.
good.
So how about now? Jim,
Jim and
does that work for
Brenda?
you, Jim and Brenda?
Are you still
Do
there?
you understand? what
Yeah,
we just
hold on. I'm trying to keep my voice down to a minimum. Because this is driving me crazy, and you too.
said? The echo.
And I wonder if I hang up, would you still be able to hear me?
You can try it and come right back on while we, yeah. Jim, you want to give us your feedback?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you much better.
We can still hear you, Brenda, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Say, you have to nod, I can't hear you.
wow.
Okay. So my concern is that I think none of us, this is no one's fault, what I'm about to say, but it seems to me that we're moving really, really quickly without really, I guess, how do I say this? Without looking at all of the issues and without strategically positioning ourselves to look at each of the responsibilities of the accountability board. We've got general parameters, but we don't have specifics. And those are the things that I think we still need to work out. In 90 days, we have a report to turn in. I have no idea what that report, whether there's a format, if when, you know, what are we going to report it on? I think the best thing to do is to kind of just back up. If we've missed the selection period for the additional board members, we can always come back and revise. It was, we talked about on the 24th, we talked about, and I think Jim brought it up, we talked about what are the criteria? Shouldn't we have a look at the job announcement? Does it list all the criteria? There was a form we even looked at. So we may have missed that window because the regulations and the board, and it's all happening not necessarily in the order that I'm thinking it should have. I wish we had time to have ironed out all of these details before there's a 90-day report due. I'm personally struggling to understand what it is that we do other than what's in this job description, in this binder. And so we have to take it step by step. is my suggestion. Maybe we list all the things that need to happen around our board. And then we maybe talk about developing some type of structure so that we know how to handle applicants. We know that we've put in place, not just a meeting calendar, but we know we can, when we can go outside of the parameters of the regulation or the legislation, legally, obviously. And not feel tied down as though, gee, we can't do that because, hey, regs don't really specifically say we can. Anyway, I'm going to stop the rant, but I'm a process-driven person. Sorry, it's just it's occupational hazard. I don't do well in chaos.
Please go right ahead.
I can't hear a thing. I can't hear anything.
Well, you can still respond.
You give me a thumbs up if you agree, a thumbs down if you disagree.
Or maybe dial back in. Yeah. Oh, she got in.
Hold on a second, because.
That's what he's telling her. She has to hear, she has to dial back in so she can hear. That's what he's trying to tell her.
Here, but it's off the computer.
I assume that she can't hear from her computer, that's why she had a second device.
Yeah,
That's
that's
why
fine.
She can just turn the microphone on computer.
Can we send her a message saying, can you call in so you could hear?
Yeah, we tried to have her just use one device and that would be her.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
her
fine.
phone.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Can you send her a message? Because if you
Yes.
said it, she wouldn't hear it.
Okay, Jim,
Yeah.
were you gonna say something?
Were you gonna say something, second? Go back.
So as a legal matter, there are, and she brought it up, there are two things that the board.
I'm sorry, before you, what you're saying is specifically for her. It is not fair for her, you to say
Okay,
it.
then hold that thought.
Yeah.
And then you
Jim,
have to, no, that's not fair to her.
Building on or in agreement with what Brenda was saying, I am like many, if not all of you. I've been a hiring manager in a large organization for many positions over my career as a hiring manager. I have never pursued recruiting applicants without defining at least the capabilities that we're looking for. So I don't think that this is a process that was particularly well thought out or that is going to elicit the kind of candidates that I'm interested in developing for this most important set of selections. And I would echo and agree with Brenda that we probably should pause and try and get this right, but try and get it right as quickly as possible, because we can't be caught short ultimately with no ACC appointments and a file being delivered. Now, that's not happening at the moment, as I understand it, particularly as what I thought was a complaint turns out to be not one subject to the jurisdiction of the ACC. So I think we've got time, as long as we move quickly, to put a process in place that is more thought out and more likely to give us the candidates that we need for this most important position. So I'm still looking for a discussion on what are the capabilities we're looking for, communicating those to the public, and seeing if we can solicit candidates that meet the criteria that we're looking for. I think that soliciting anyone out there to tell us what their capabilities are without defining what we're looking for is not a good process.
I agree. Say it, please.
One thing.
Yes.
With regards with what Mr. Gormley said, although the incident has to arise after July 1st, and then the police department is exempt because of their existing collective bargaining agreement, lieutenants and above in the police department are not subject to the CBA. Therefore, any complaint against them could potentially go to the ACC, and there is no collective bargaining agreement with regards to the sheriff's office. So any complaint against the sheriff concerning a member of the public would go to the ACC. Therefore, a matter can potentially go to the ACC very soon. So from a legal standpoint, it is important for you all to make your appointments as soon as practical.
Okay, Brenda, are you back now? No, she's not back. Okay, all right. I absolutely agree. I agree with Jim. Sega, we've got to get something going. Hold on just one second. I'll be right with you. Now, the only thing is, how do we do that and do it quickly? Okay, and that's what I'm open to, and that's kind of why I set the meeting. I think that this is the thing. I don't know how the county executive is going to make his appointments, okay? I have no idea. But that doesn't necessarily concern me either, because we have autonomy in terms of how we make our appointments. So, even if we look at the applicants, what are we looking for? Are we just assuming that we look at them and we're gonna agree, okay, they're good or bad? Now, we could look at them just in terms of expediency and then decide. But I do agree with Jim that the solicitation has already gone out, okay? And so what do we do now? Okay, so that's the issue. What do we do now? I see nothing at all wrong with looking at current applicants. It's no deadline in terms of our decision-making. We could look at the decision, we could look at those applicants right now and decide, okay, these are fine. These are fine for whatever reason we bring to the table. But but like Sega just said, we've got to do this quickly though. That's the only issue, and that's why I was suggesting that we meet. But yes, sir.
Matter of fact, the criteria that Jim mentioned in the memo that he sent out to us, we could very well use that when we review the application for the candidates.
Okay, well, so why don't we do this?
And we can do that as a board.
Okay, hold on a second. Yes.
So I guess I haven't seen what the solicitation that went out by the executive.
It's in the book.
I haven't seen it, that's all I'm saying. But are we assuming that what he solicited for is not what we want,
No.
if it's for the same position?
No, I said, no, that's not what I said. I said.
No, I'm not saying that's what you said, I'm just saying, I'm asking the
No,
question.
The answer
That's
is
not
no.
our assumption.
Okay, because there's a lot of talk about, we didn't say what we wanted in this person to come in, but the person is gonna be doing the same job that the other two persons that the executive,
Yes,
county executive is gonna be doing.
Right.
So their skills, I'm assuming, would be similar,
Right.
or have the same foundation in terms of what they're gonna be doing.
Right.
So are
That makes
our
sense.
requirements gonna be that much different?
probably not.
Okay, that's it.
Probably not. I don't think they will be inconsistent. Yes, sir.
Comments from public?
No, okay, we have public comment? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't,
The open,
excuse me a second.
the Open Meetings Act permits the public to observe proceedings, but not necessarily to permit participation, but it's totally up to you.
I don't have a problem. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Joel Hurwitz. I realized some of these problems with the charging committee when the bill was pending to set you up, and I raised that with the administration, and I'm happy to see that the solution's online. Because I realized some of the issues you discussed, do you want people to have police experience, or do you want people not to have police experience? And I realized part of it, that some of the other jurisdictions were putting that criteria when their county council was developing it. And I urged Howard County to do that, because I realized some of these issues are still pending. The announcement has the staggering. The administration is relying on the COMARs that are apparently not technically in effect. They suggested in the COMARs to have staggering. Probably a good idea, but doesn't require it, and they didn't say it. I think that's subject to the county council. The county executive's announcement said that they have to fill out the public ethics law that you did. You were all added to the public ethics law list of agencies in county. The ACC is not on there. I don't know how they be subject to the jurisdiction if there's an issue with them when they're not on the list of agencies. The terms of office, it seems also to be up to the county council. Also have a problem. The county doesn't have a lot of complaints in the past. Is the ACC going to sit around? They have to meet once a month and may have nothing to talk about. Are people going to get bored and leave after they've required their 40 hours of training? Do you want to have a pool of people that have gone through the training so that when people leave the ACC, you're not left with having to advertise, take several months, they have to go find the next training cycle. That's left out of the COMARs, and I've talked to the training commission.
again, some of these things, I really would like you to recommend in your report, if not earlier, that the county council fill in some of these details. Because neither you can't deal with the term of office. You can't deal with the staggering issue. You can deal with your criteria, or the county council should fill it in. And the other problem I have for the Office of Law, you're getting close, I think, to rulemaking violations of the APA, of the county code, of some of these things. And I would urge that if the county council doesn't do some of these things, that your board follow the APA and to go through the county's rulemaking procedures, which would fill in some of those details. Again, the county council, I think, really has to answer some of these details. So I urge that to the Office of Law, and Mr. Cook, you now heard my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. We had a lot to consider, guys. We got a lot to consider, but we're perfectly capable. So what we'll do, we need to decide on some particulars. Okay, do we need to meet again? Okay, with notice and so forth to resolve some of this as much as we possibly can. Okay, now keep in mind, we have an applicant pool that we can pick from or we don't have to pick from. The other thing is that even though we have the applicant pool, that does not, let me make sure, that does not limit us to soliciting other people. Okay? And if we are not satisfied, and the other thing is the timing, even though we need to do it quickly, there is no set date for it. Okay, so, and there's a lot of issues, like I said, the county, there's just a lot of stuff going on here. And we need a moment to kind of like figure all this out, but we can do what is within our purview. We can't control the county exec, we can't control the county council. What we can do is pick our members to the extent possible. I love the idea of having a pool. I love that idea. I'm not sure how that can be managed, but I love it. We can figure that out.
Because that's what they do with the judge trial board.
One more time?
The trial board people are going through their training so that there's a pool of judges to be on the trial board.
Yeah. Like I said, I think that's a good idea. I just have to figure out how to manage it. So, okay, so what's it gonna be, guys? What are we gonna do?
I think we need to go back to you responding, even if she can't hear it.
I can.
Now you can hear.
You can hear.
Here,
Good job.
Great, Brenda.
As a matter of law, there are several items that I think the board has to address, and she brought up the report. So we do have a report due in 3 months. That's a matter that should be discussed with the board, because you're legally required to do that report by December 31st of each year.
Okay.
And one thing that the board also needs to do is draft a rules of procedure, which really will assist in this whole process.
Yes.
And that's also required under the county code for all boards and commissions to have a rules of procedure. So I understand the ACC appointments may be more pressing at this time, but I think those are 2 items that should be on your next agenda, I guess, after you all have addressed the ACC appointments, or at the same time that you address the ACC appointments. The one thing that I was going to point out to the board is that what the gentleman alluded to is there are proposed regulations that are being passed pursuant to the emergency authorization process. And those regulations do provide some guidance on selection of ACC members. I believe they were disseminated to you all in your binders. All those regulations are written such that it says, you may consider the following things. It's not required, it's not a shall, but it will, the regs do provide some guidance on that if the board is inclined to look at those proposed regulations.
I certainly think that's a start.
That's the stuff that she had mentioned, is definitely on the agenda for the 28th. So, I mean, it's really up to you.
I will point out, those regs have not been passed formally yet. They're out there. I don't think there's anything that would preclude you from looking at it, but I will note that they have not been formally passed yet. They're going through the emergency authorization.
Also in the regs, if I remember correctly, these are suggestions, right? I read them some time ago, but they are suggestions. They're not concrete. This is what this is what the members must
A
have.
lot of the regulations are drafted in may, not shall.
Okay.
And I wonder if I can just observe there that there was an original draft of the regulations that included mostly shalls. There was a substantial pushback, both with respect to whether there was any authority for those regulations, and that resulted in many of those provisions going from shall to may to become suggestions rather than requirements.
Oh, we can still adopt them if we want to, so,
Yes.
So, okay.
I just, my just quick question to you on this report that we seem to be pushing towards. Is there a template on what we need to cover in the report?
I'll have all
That's
that.
all so, and in the rules of procedures, I didn't even know that until just now. If we have a rules of procedures, is there some template that we're supposed to use that we can base it on, or are we just creating it out of the air?
Oh, no, we're not creating it out of the air.
No, but I'm saying that there should be some type of template that we're using to create the rules of procedures.
The County Code Administrative Procedures Act could assist. You could get legal advice from me on those issues and in consultation with each other. So,
So why don't we do this? Why don't we seek legal advice on that issue? And then we'll move from there.
Sounds good.
I'm sorry.
One other quick question. And I missed this.
When I'm back in, are we saying that, according to the job description, that for the accountability board charging committee, that we're going to review the applications that have come in and make selections on those individuals without specific criteria of what we're looking for? Because it's not in this job description, other than Howard County residents and diversity.
Didn't say that.
No, I don't think we are wedded to the applicants that have already submitted their applications. What I intended to say is there's nothing wrong with looking at those applicants at this point. That does not preclude us from soliciting other applicants if we are not satisfied.
I'm just asking, do we know what we're looking for? Because it's not clear. It's just a list of administrative duties, and that, as I said before, that they are residents. Oh, and that they're available to come to the meeting.
I think what Sega was saying, we're gonna seek legal advice on how we're gonna proceed, and we're gonna also seek legal advice on the regs. If, again, I read them a little while ago, but we can look at those regs and be guided in terms of what we want. That's, Jim has suggested some criteria. I think they're good. We can consider all of that. We're not wedded to that. That's what I'm saying. So we put together what the regs shall, may, so forth, and what Jim has considered. I think we can come together. Everybody has a copy of those, right?
Yeah.
So why don't we kind of look at these individually and then just come back together? We may find ourselves, and what I'm thinking is that we can put both ideas together. I thought Jim's ideas were good. And I looked at the regs a little while ago, and I don't see any conflict between the two. That's my point. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. I was just asking about, that we're going to look at these applicants as an option, but we still are we don't have criteria upon which we would all agree. Do they meet this checkbox? Do they meet this? Are they, the same kind of scrutiny that we kind of went through as board members to become appointed?
We do not have specific criteria to look at. No, we have not. I'm sorry?
That's That's what I'm asking, as in, are we going to look at, I mean, I just don't know how we can pick people for which we don't have a clear, qualifications that need to be met.
That's why I suggested that we put, right now, like I said, if you guys have a copy of Jim's suggestions, and then if you can look at the regs, we can put those two together. That's what I'm saying. But if you're asking whether or not we have agreed upon criteria in which to look at these applications, the answer is no.
What I'm asking for is a concrete path forward, right? And I mean, it's perfectly understandable. To me, it's like laying out next steps. What is going to happen next, right? So we all have the same shared understanding. I think we are all in agreement, I hope anyway, that the county executive will share his pool of applicants. We will review them. However, before we review them, we need to come up with a list of criteria such that we are all reviewing the applications the same way, is the question I really hear, right?
Right.
So it really becomes, when are we going to do that? Is the expectation that if we are meeting next week, I don't know, we never really said, right? If we're meeting next week, is the intention to come up with that list of criteria next week, so that when we get the applications from the county exec, then we can all make sure that we're doing, and however we decide, if we decide we're each individually reviewing them based on that criteria, or if we're doing a collective review based on that criteria. So I just think we need to be clear on what the path forward is what I hear her say that she really needs to have to allay her concerns about, so that she won't feel confused about what we're doing here.
I agree. I think, okay, and again, please chime in. I would prefer to meet. That's what I said in the beginning. I prefer to meet, okay? I prefer to meet, having looked at Jim's questions and comments and so forth. Look at the regs, put them together, okay? And then we can decide on picking and choosing. That's my suggestion. I think otherwise we're just doing it like in a vacuum. We don't, we just go home and look at it and decide. I think we should meet.
So the next meeting would be to develop the criteria that we want to see in a candidate?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion.
I think that's a fair compromise.
Right, and also discuss.
In agreement.
I'm sorry, and also discuss the rules of procedure.
Mhm.
So I
Okay.
did have that scheduled and the ACC stuff scheduled for the 28th. But if y'all don't want to do it on the 28th, you want to do it earlier, that's.
Well, I think it's important that we do it before the 28th, at least the ACC
Okay.
information. I think that's, I think, the rules of procedure, I think, are very important, but I don't think those rules are as important as the ACC qualifications. So in terms of your energy and timing, I think if we can prepare to meet on the ACC qualifications on the 13th or 14th, is that what we said?
And I'm not available on the 13th. I'm only available next
Right,
Wednesday.
I need pretty much like full attendance if I can. At least so one person could be on mine, two people be on mine. But I definitely do need everybody there, so it'll be
Right.
across the board.
Absolutely.
Nobody won't be left out.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, so 14th, excuse me.
The 14th.
14th is good?
Fantastic work for me.
Yeah, Brenda?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm looking right now. I'm looking, can you hear me?
Jim said yes.
Jim said yes, okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the calendar right now. And you said the 14th, what time?
Same
14th
time.
is good. 14th is good, yeah.
We're good, 14th.
At 6, at 6?
Yes.
At 6? Good, okay.
So there was a proposal that it be a Zoom meeting. Is that okay? Or do we need to have it in person?
I'd rather be in person.
If we're going to go into closed session about the requirements and stuff, we're gonna have to be in person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we can do closed session online. Okay,
I'd rather do it
Okay.
in person.
Wait, I'm sorry.
I was saying, the closed session or not, virtual or not.
But you don't have to go into
You don't
closed
have-
session
you
for
don't-
requirements.
okay.
The requirements is an open meeting, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
The requirements are not an action, so you have to be in open setting for requirement.
Okay,
so
so we'll be
it'll just
meeting on
be
the
in person.
14th to discuss ACC requirements,
Yeah.
right? Now, before that time, go ahead, who's talking?
Did you want to go into a closed session to get legal advice on that issue?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so then you need to, one, there needs to be a vote to go into a closed session.
Mhm.
And then we need to put it on the agenda that you all intend to go into a closed session
Mhm.
and to just state the reasons that we're going into a closed session.
Okay, so do we do that now?
Yes.
Okay,
So if you are going to go into a closed session for next meeting, you could vote on it now, and then that could be noted on the agenda that you are going into into a
Legal.
closed session for legal advice.
legal
I'm sorry.
advice, yes. Okay, is everyone in agreement with that? I don't, you almost have to be in agreement with it.
Yes, a motion.
Yes.
Motion.
Okay,
Brenda said yes.
everybody says yes?
Yes.
All in
Okay.
agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm just,
It's a closed session for legal, go ahead.
no, I'm just gonna say, and just on my observation of how we are interacting thus far,
Mhm.
I would think that we will only be discussing the criteria next meeting and not really trying to deal with, or is the closed session about the legal advice for the policies and procedures, or is it for something else?
You all determine what you would like legal advice on, I'm not.
Go ahead.
No, because my thought is that it's not, we're not covering the policies and procedures next meeting. Unless, because it takes us, it takes us a long time.
You're right. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute,
We'll do the ACC
Hold
first.
on a second, hold on a second. We are seeking, okay, got so much stuff on the floor now.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a minute. We need, when we seek legal advice, we need to be in a closed session. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so the question is, what are we seeking legal advice on?
Exactly.
Your
Okay.
rules of procedure,
Where our rules of procedure, right?
yes.
Okay,
And if
so,
you have questions about your ACC membership appointment, legal questions or legal, are you seeking legal advice on ACC membership appointments? You could also do that.
Yeah.
So we can do
So it
both.
could be
We can do
So we
both,
can do
okay.
both.
That sounds good.
Okay, now wait a minute, I have another question. If on the 14th, if we are talking about the qualifications, does that have to be an open meeting?
Well, you're saying,
Close.
well, okay, so if you're gonna be discussing qualifications of your ACC members, that will be a subject of a.
We're asking if we can legally do
But
that.
if you are seeking legal advice on your ACC appointments, that would be a closed meeting.
I got it.
So, yeah.
Okay, all right, I got it now. Okay, I'm sorry. On the 14th, it's an open meeting, right? Okay.
Part
Say
of it.
yes.
Part of it, yeah.
Part of it, then we go into close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any meeting could be hybrid, right?
Right.
As long as you announce
That is gonna
Right.
be going into
that it's
close.
gonna be, so you have to have a open session in order to go into a closed session anyway. And you just advertise in advance, like, we're gonna have an open meeting on the following topics, will also be closed to obtain legal advice on X, Y, Z.
Okay.
So that's what the open meetings are.
That's good.
Got it,
I'm all for that.
got it, you got that, yeah.
Yeah, so we had,
And we only have one person, I believe, have you gotten training?
yeah.
You did the open meetings act training, okay. then
I
that's-
got a
I've had
couple of.
the
I finished mine too.
Oh, okay.
I did mine too.
Okay, I didn't know.
Completed.
Yeah, I
So
have,
you do have to have a person trained on the open meetings act
Okay.
present in order to go into it.
Now, I'm not gonna say I can give any advice on it. That was a lot.
We trained.
There's a lot to
We went to the
retain.
training.
Yeah, but I did complete.
We have
the
a
training.
Okay,
certification.
perfect, thank you.
Okay, so on,
Are eligible to go in a closed session.
Okay.
okay, good, okay, so on the 14th,
Right.
we are going to have an open meeting to discuss our qualifications for the ACC.
Right.
Correct?
so can
Go ahead.
Do you still need the 28th, because, yes,
Yeah.
At least keep it on there for
Wait
now.
just a
Yeah.
second, and then we can decide.
that's fine.
So on the 14th, we're gonna have an open meeting to discuss qualifications for the ACC. And if necessary, only if necessary, we're going to, and we have to decide that too, because don't we have to, Cause notice, okay.
Yeah.
So so forget that part.
Don't say if necessary,
Yeah,
because
don't
we
say
will be
necessary.
going into closed
Yeah.
session. Because we do need legal advice relative to the policies and procedures.
Yeah.
Even if we decide we don't need it relative to
That's right.
the ACC appointment.
Mhm.
So we absolutely will be going into closed session.
Good job.
Okay, but
Yeah.
are we gonna do that on the 14th?
Yes,
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
yes.
I'm putting it on the agenda.
Because at least the
Okay.
way my mind is working
Yeah.
is that after we go into closed session on the 14th to get the legal advice regarding the policies and procedures, if we decide we are having a meeting on the 28th, then
That's
that
right.
should be a working session to develop those policies and
Got
procedures.
it.
Okay.
That's exactly what we were gonna say.
Okay, good.
Sounds good.
It is, it's
Sounds good to
because the 28th
Right.
was for the policy and
Mhm.
procedures, so if we have that, then we'll have a working and we'll develop.
Excellent.
But we also maybe on the 28th, we will also have those applications
On
in,
the
so we
28th.
can also be reviewing that as well. So then we can decide, do they match the criteria that we agreed to? And if not, then we will have to look at how to
Yeah.
republish.
Yes, second. Yes,
The title.
Okay, six.
I'm asking.
Six. If
Yes,
six
can
works.
you
for everybody.
We can
Yeah,
hear
go
you.
ahead.
Yes?
You can hear me?
Yes.
So would we want to, bring or provide in advance, maybe some suggestions for what this, list of tasks and criteria that we believe it would take to be qualified for the position? As
Yes.
opposed to just a free-for-all, I think we should have this, that, and the other. I just want to be prepared.
Yes, absolutely.
You share it.
No.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
we wouldn't share it.
No, just bring
We
it
wouldn't
with,
share it.
Bring it with.
So you would prepare in advance and you can decide what criteria you think that the person should have. When we get together, you can present whatever it is you think, and then we will decide collectively if we want to accept what you propose. So that by the time we're finished, we have collectively come up with the criteria. Does that make sense?
Thumbs up.
Yes.
Awesome.
good job. Jim?
This is actually on the policies and procedures, which is probably the secondary item, but I wanted to just mention one idea. You know, that there's a dozen or more boards already constituted under the Howard County Code pursuant to the Administrative Procedures Act in Howard County that will have rules and procedures. Would it be possible for help from county administration to obtain 2 or 3 examples of existing rules of procedure that have been adopted by other boards in Howard County that we could use as a potential template? That would shorten certainly a lot of the work that we'd have to do.
I'm certain that.
That's our legal
absolutely.
advice in closed session.
That's exactly right. That's what I asked about.
Yes, that's why we're going into closed section.
Go ahead.
Yes, he wants template. We want a template.
Templates for
2
how
or 3
other,
examples that we could look at, yeah.
other boards add with the
Yes.
procedure.
Mhm. Yes,
I have some as well. I've sat on other boards for the county. So I have a couple of examples. I can redact what looks and appears to be confidential, but bring just the outline.
perfect, thank you.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Absolutely.
I second.
Is our 15 minutes up
Okay,
already?
okay, wow, okay, thank you guys, we'll see everybody on the 14th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, 14th, 6 o'clock, thank you.
Good job.